Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching What If Naruto was raised by Minato and Kushina who survived Kyuubi's attack. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
After seeing a doctor, Kushina Uzumaki, or more accurately, Kushina Namikaze, just got home eager to share the wonderful news with her husband. She didn't need to look far because she could already hear him in the kitchen combining the ingredients for a baked good with his keen sense of hearing. Minato Namikaze, the great shinobi he was, heard his wife enter and inquired as he kept stirring the mixture. He said, "Welcome home, Kushina. How'd it go? Is everything okay?" In an attempt to hint at the good news, she said, "Yeah, I'm actually great." The doctor said, "Well, how do you feel about having a baby?" He protruded his head in perplexity at this point. A baby?" exclaimed Kushina, unable to contain her excitement. She exclaimed excitedly, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a mother, ya know." When she spoke, he exclaimed in disbelief at what she had just said. "A mother? And I'm gonna be a father?" "A mother, ya know, I'm gonna be a father. A mother, ya know, a father," he reiterated to her as they both rushed to embrace while giggling with delight. Minato is so excited that he is unable to complete his sentence. "Kushina, this is so," she exclaimed. "Amazing. I know, we're really gonna have a baby," as Minato gave her a passionate kiss, during which he realized he had dropped the bowl. They were brought back to reality by the sound. Whoops, hang on. He makes the shadow clone jutsu hand sign, and as the real Minato carries Kushina to their bedroom, the clone cleans up the mess. They were carried away to happiness and bliss by their passion. Minato kept his right hand over Kushina's stomach while they lay in bed naked after 2 hours of passionate kissing. "You know there's nothing to feel yet," as the idea of becoming a father tormented him, Minato remarked. "I know, but I can't help it. We're really gonna be parents." The following day, they both inspected their home to determine what needed to be changed. Minato said, "Okay, we'll make this room the nursery. I just gotta move some of this stuff to a new location, but yeah, with a little paint job we can definitely make this work." Kushina laughed at her husband's prompt preparation. Moments like these demonstrated that even the fourth Hokage, the hero of the Leaf Village, Yellow Flash, can occasionally be irritable as a child. Minato turned and listened as Kushina called out, "Hey Minato. Do you think maybe you can see if Jiraiya can track down Tsunade for me? I want to tell her the news myself." She replied. This request did not surprise Minato. After all, Tsunade had a sisterly bond with her from the moment they first met and helped shape her into the shinobi she is today. It goes without saying that Tsunade was the irritated older sister who constantly helped Kushina with her boy problems, lectured her, and pulled her out of trouble until she made the decision to leave because Dan had died. He was so excited that Kushina could see it. "Sure thing. I'll have a messenger toad find him in a bit," nor can she blame him. He was raised in an orphanage and did not know his family, after all. The third Hokage only informed him that his mother didn't believe she was capable of raising him. On that day, he made a self-promise to never allow his child to grow up alone the way he did. As time went on, Tsunade visited the village during Kushina's 3rd month of pregnancy. Although she didn't particularly like the village, she was prepared to make an exception for Minato and Kushina. Although she and Shizune were taken aback by the news, they were pleased for them. Tsunade was asked to stay by Kushina so she could be the only one to give birth. She was on the verge of declining, but Minato persuaded her to reconsider. He never knew why, but he always managed to enlist Tsunade's assistance when he needed it. Then they asked Tsunade to be the baby's godmother. Despite her shock, she felt privileged to have accepted. Jiraiya was informed via messenger frog only a month before the baby's due date. He returned to the village. Minato was engrossed in Jiraiya's book at this point, stories of a brave ninja. He was taken aback when Jiraiya saw him and slapped his back. "Oh, so you were reading my tales of a gutsy ninja? But it's my first published work. The sentences are childish and I didn't do a good job." "No, I don't think so. This tale is wonderful. Oh, each chapter reads like one of your legendary exploits. It's almost like an autobiography," said Minato. Jiraiya expressed his disappointment with the sales of his book by saying, "But it didn't sell at all. For my next one I think I'll add some sexy elements to spice it up a bit. The main character of this book, I thought his determination to never give up was really cool. He's a lot like you, sensei," said Minato. Since Jiraiya didn't genuinely believe that anyone, much less his own student, would enjoy the book, he asked, "Why, you think so?" "So I was thinking I really hope my unborn child can become a ninja just like this main character, which is why I'd like your permission to name my son after him," Minato said, utterly surprising Jiraiya with a genuine smile. Whoa, are you sure about that? It's just a random name I came up with while eating some ramen," Jiraiya attempted to clarify. As Kushina emerged from the kitchen, she exclaimed. Naruto. She placed a hand on her stomach, nodded in agreement with her husband, and stood beside him, saying, I think it's a wonderful name. Kushina. Jiraiya appears taken aback by her acceptance of that name, particularly since he already has a poor reputation with her due to his multiple surveillances of her prior to her marriage to Minato. Geez. I guess this means I get to be his godfather, but are you sure about this? He joked, blushing in shame. Minato and Kushina approved Jiraiya as Naruto's godfather, saying, of course. You are my sensei and a great ninja who possesses the true talent of a ninja. There's no other like you. To help her overcome her fear of blood, Tsunade had returned from the blood bank. She was aware that if she wanted to give birth, she had to do this. She began to improve, and as of tonight, she is fully recovered. Because she can't trust Jiraiya enough to not sneak a peek when she least expects it, she was ready to celebrate until she saw him and immediately became defensive. Tsunade accepted Minato's explanation that Jiraiya was now the official godfather because she was aware that Minato respected Jiraiya above all others. She and Kushina don't know why, but they knew deep down that Jiraiya was a decent man. They just wish he wasn't such a pervert at that point. Jiraiya defended himself. I resent that. I am not a pervert, Tsunade said. Then what are you then? With his trademark sultry smile, Jiraiya declared with pride, I'm a super pervert, and gave a thumbs up. Tsunade shouted, that doesn't make it any better, and hurled a teacup in his direction. I'm telling you right now. As his godmother, if I see that he so much as shows a sign of perversity, I'll give you a worse punishment than when I almost pummeled you to death. Tsunade screamed with her fist. Kushina grinned and clenched her fist, saying, and as Naruto's mother I fully support her punishment. As they watched this, Shizune and Minato were both drenched in sweat. After a month, Jiraiya promised to return in time for Naruto's birth, but he had already left to travel once more. It was almost time for Naruto's birthday when the third Hokage and his wife Bawako entered their home. They told them about the Kyuubi's near escape and how Kushina would give birth in a secret place. While Kushina and Bawako moved more slowly behind them, Minato, Tsunade, and Shizune went ahead and got everything ready. Her thoughts shifted to how her other friends were either already or soon to have their own families after speaking with Mikoto and seeing Sasuke Yoshino, whose first child was just born, Sume, who currently has 2 children, and Saya, Hieshi's wife, who is due in December. Shikamaru, in her opinion, resembles his father too much. He sleeps most of the time and only cries when he is hungry. Bawako interrupts her thoughts. You know, you giving birth is supposed as secretive as possible and are supposed to avoid as much contact as possible. With her typical smile, Kushina said, I know, sorry. At any rate, I don't want to hear you screaming like crazy if your labor pains kick in. Got it? Later that night, in the cave where she will give birth, Kushina exclaimed, oh my god, it hurts. Yakenowwww. As she experienced the agony of childbirth and sensed the fox running away. Minato worriedly asked, is she all right? Bawako was about to respond, but Tsunade was quicker. She literally struck Minato in the back of the head whenever she thought he was being foolish. As she returned her attention to bringing the baby back, Tsunade remarked, moron, she's giving birth and trying to keep the fox back, of course she'd be in pain. Minato said anxiously, but auntie, I've never seen her in this much pain before. Being referred to as auntie made Tsunade tremble. She didn't like being called that, but ever since they first met, Minato has always called her that, but this time she didn't mind. Honestly, this is exactly why men can never give birth. Now stay focused on the seal, Minato, Bawako said to Minato. In the meantime, the Anbu who were watching over the cave were silently killed. The man in the mask entered the cave. Kushina kept screaming until at last there was a loud cry. Kushina felt her own tears start to fall as soon as she heard the sobbing. She was in disbelief at last. He's here. Tsunade gazed at the tiny creature she had created. She could go to her if he needed to talk to her because this boy was her godson. He reminded her of her brother Nawaki. When she looked at him, she grinned and expressed her satisfaction at accepting the offer to bring Naruto into the world. She then handed him off to Bawako and Shizune, who wrapped him in his red blanket. After cleaning him up, Tsunade looked back at his son after wiping her happy tears from her face, which Minato noticed. I can't believe it, I'm a father, Naruto, exclaimed Minato, eager to see him. Minato pouted at not being able to see him yet, but Bawako firmly said, don't touch him. The mother sees him first. As she passed him, Kushina was shown Naruto by Bawako. Despite her fatigue, she grinned. Notwithstanding her weariness, she said cheerfully, Naruto, I finally get to meet you. Bawako tried to comfort Naruto as he sobbed, saying, okay, you two will have time bond after one more detail is handled there. As he, Tsunade, and Shizune turned to face Kushina, Minato asked, "How are you doing?" "Tired," was her cheerful response with the happiest expression she hasn't seen since he confessed to her, expressed his love for her, and got married. Minato said, "Thank you, Kushina." "Minato," she answered joyfully, prepared to cry once more. Shizune and Tsunade remained silent, allowing the contented couple to savor their moment. Then Minato strikes his right palm with his fist. Kushina nodded as Minato said, "All right. I know you just gave birth, Kushina, but I need you stay with me a little longer till I reapply the seal." He was getting ready to make the hand signals when the four heard Bawako scream. Minato exclaimed, "Bawako!" As the four of them turned to see Naruto, still in tears, being held by a masked man. He threatened Naruto with a kunai, saying, "Fourth Lord Hokage, Tsunade Senju, step away from the nine-tailed Jinchuriki or the boy can die at the tender age of 1 minute." Shizune, Tsunade, and Minato remained motionless. Any pointless actions could result in Naruto's death. Who is this man? He not only defeated the Anbu hired by Sarutobi sensei, but he bypassed the barrier surrounding this place too. Tsunade was thinking about this. Threatened, the masked man said, "I won't ask again. Move. Or do you not value your son's life?" Then, with the seal still unfinished, Minato saw the fox attempting to flee. "Don't try anything." Minato said, "Wait, just stay calm." "Oh, I'm very calm," the man in the mask said, tossing Naruto into the air and preparing to stab him. As Naruto sobbed, Kushina cried out in alarm, "Naruto ooh!" But Minato was able to stop him in time. Shizune, Tsunade commanded as Shizune hurled her poison-tipped senbon needles. To their astonishment, they went straight through the man, and Minato noted that. He remarked, "When plan A doesn't work, always have plan B ready to go." When he saw Tsunade aim her fist at him and throw herself at him, he seized the opportunity to run and separate Kushina from them using his teleportation technique. When Minato saw that, Tsunade and Shizune also appeared shocked. Minato shouted, Kushina. Minato, calm down, we have to get Naruto to a safe place, then focus on getting Kushina." Tsunade stated to him in an attempt to relax. Minato took deep breaths. Then he used his Hiraishin to take them to the second house Minato had built for him and Kushina, saying, "Auntie, Shizune, hold on to me." Naruto was placed in their bed by him. "Okay Naruto, you stay here with your godmother and Aunt Shizune, I need to go save your mother." As she watched Minato fade away and turned to face Naruto, Tsunade said, "Don't worry, we won't let anything happen to him." She lost herself in her own thoughts. "Naruto, you remind of Nawaki, so did your father, you look so much like him." Shizune yelled, "Lady Tsunade." Tsunade blushed, not realizing she was speaking aloud. "What do you mean by all that?" Tsunade said, clearly attempting to conceal something. "It's nothing really. Look Shizune, there are some things about me that are better left unsaid, okay?" She responded. Her request was granted by Shizune. Meanwhile, the masked man was controlling Kushina, who had already had the Kyuubi removed. He had just given the order to kill Kushina, but Minato saved her. "Mina too?" Minato asked, grinning and nodding. Is Naruto safe?" "Yeah, I took him to a safe location. Auntie and Shizune are watching him," Minato stated to her. When Minato noticed that she was becoming weaker, Kushina responded, "Thank goodness," after hearing her say, "Listen Minato. That man is going to attack the leaf with the Kyuubi, you have to stop him." Minato turned to face the man wearing the mask. Despite Minato's reputation for being composed, nobody, not even Kushina, could see the anger in his eyes. With a strong desire to murder the man in the mask, he gazed at him, then he teleported out of sight. Flew away again. "Oh well, time to destroy the leaf," he replied. Tsunade could tell by the way she looked that Minato had returned with Kushina in his arms. "Minato, why?" As he placed her beside Naruto, he remarked, "Never mind that." As he observed Kushina straining to move her arms in order to embrace their son, he said, "Stay here with Naruto." As she attempted to hold him and began to cry through her smile, all she could manage to say was, "Naruto." Minato noticed that she was gradually fading away. As she looked at her, she is slowly dying in front of him. Despite his vow to always protect her, when Tsunade and Shizune heard him pop his knuckles simply by making a fist with them, they saw the dejected and agonized expression on his face. He was on his way to retrieve his Hokage and kunai jacket. "Minato, thank you, good luck." As he quickly put on his Hokage jacket, Minato declared, "I'll be back." Tsunade muttered, "Minato, leave Kushina to me, I may be able to help her." When Minato heard it, she was shocked. "Can you really? Can you go protect the village? I'll get to work on Kushina," Tsunade replied. Minato put his trust in Tsunade and teleported away, saying, "Right." As Kushina nodded slowly, she said, "Okay, Kushina, I need you to lie still for me." "Lady Tsunade, you can't." it's alright Shizune. She hasn't died yet, at the most I'll lose 10 years of my life using the jutsu. Tsunade replied. Kushina was about to argue when she heard this. As she started to use the jutsu she had learned on her travels, she said, "And don't argue with me Kushina, this is my choice starting right now. I'm putting my life on the line to protect this village, and I'll start by making sure my godson has his mother in his life, no more running away." The jutsu of life restoration. Then Shizune covered Tsunade's hands to assist her. "Shizune, I want to help her too Lady Tsunade with my chakra to help. This should lessen the amount of life energy you lose. Don't worry about me, after all this my choice too." Shizune replied. Tsunade refrained from arguing back because doing so would have only made her remarks seem hypocritical. Despite feeling stronger, Kushina held on to Naruto. He was put in danger after only being born, so he didn't want to let go. Minato dealt with the fox's attack on the village. In the interim, he was currently engaged in combat with the man wearing the mask. He said, "Are you Madara Uchiha?" He put on his long-chained handcuffs and charged at Minato, saying, "Madara Uchiha? Maybe, but he's already dead, so I don't see how." The masked man was attacked by Minato's once more, but he used his Hiraishin to break free from the chain as he charged at the man and hurled his three-pronged kunai. Minato remarked, "I'm starting to get his attack pattern. He'll wait till the last second to attack. It's a gamble, but the first one to strike first wins the fight." And witnessed it pass through. Everything was decided at this point. "Now I've got you," he said, but Minato quickly vanished and was now behind him. With a shout of Rasengan, he struck his back with it and inscribed the Hiraishin seal on him. As the masked man attempted to flee, he saw Minato in front of him and was stabbed with his kunai. "Hiraishin level 2 inches," Minato said. In his mind, he thought, "Damn it, he must have marked me somewhere." Afterward, he saw Minato putting another seal on him. As the mask was about to attempt a last-ditch escape, Minato remarked, "Now the fox is no longer under your control. This isn't the end. I have other methods and the fox will eventually be mine. Sorry to disappoint, but there's one more seal. I placed one there. As of right now you can't access any of your chakra. And I don't intend on letting you get away with everything you've just committed against this village, putting my newborn son in danger, and most of all making Kushina suffer like that." Minato continued to flicker behind him as he cut his throat and allowed him to bleed to death. Minato declared, "Whoever you are under that mask, this is your end." He then turned to face the fox, who was getting ready to call Gamabunta, until he heard him say, "I'll let the Anbu deal with you when this is over." Ninja art. Bringing down the house jutsu. Standing atop the fox was a gigantic toad brandishing twin katanas. When his Jiraiya finally arrived, Minato exclaimed, "Sensei," with delight. His tone was lighthearted as he asked, "Hey Minato, so, is he healthy?" Minato was aware that this was his method of dealing with a grave circumstance. "Yeah, he's as healthy as can be, Minato." Jiraiya and Minato turned to see Sarutobi, the third Hokage, calling out to him, "How did this happen?" As Sarutobi grabbed hold of him and used Hiraishin to transport themselves out of the village, Minato said, "No time to explain." Just as the Kyuubi was about to fall, Minato dragged Naruto and the women out. "Damn, my chakra is running low. I used too much in my fight with that man." Kushina said, "Minato, we need to seal the fox again," and when she used her chakra chains to create a barrier, he could see she was as good as new. "It's too much chakra to seal. An 8 trigram seal would be effective, but I'd have to split the chakra in half." Minato clarified. Sarutobi knocked Minato unconscious, saying, "I'm low on chakra and I don't want to leave you and Naruto, but this is all I can." "You've done what you can Minato. I know what you plan on doing," he replied. Jiraiya stood up after he had fallen and said, "What do you mean, old man?" Sarutobi told them about Minato's plan and how he would carry it out instead of Minato. "Kushina, I know this isn't what you want for Naruto, and there's no denying he will have a hard life even with you and Minato watching over him. Do all you can to raise him right." Kushina nodded, sobbing at the elderly man's remarks and terrified of what her own son would have to deal with in the future. Jiraiya was working on the seal's key formula. "Tsunade, be strong. A time will come when you must tell them everything you kept inside for so long. As you saw, he's grown into a fine young man." Tsunade nodded in agreement. Even though this was the most difficult thing for him to witness, Jiraiya grinned as usual and said, "No need to give me last words, old man. You've been an awesome teacher. I'll see ya around. Give my regards to your wife when you see her. Minato, I know you'll probably be angry at me for doing this in your stead, but this is my choice. You are still young and have a family to look after. Enjoy every bit of it that you can, because for a shinobi, especially for a cage, life can be all too short. This my last act as Hokage. I entrust you to keep the village's will of fire going. Goodbye, 4th Lord Hokage, Minato Namikaze." Sarutobi said while making the hand signs. Naruto was dozing off on the ceremonial pedestal while Kushina stood there. As the Kyuubi struggled to break free of the chains, he felt half of his chakra taken away and sealed in Kushina. Gur curse you, Kushina. You and your clan. I will not be sealed again, he cried. She gave a slight wince. She thought to herself, even though it's only half, it's still great enough to hurt like this. At this point, Naruto was going to seal the other half containing the Kyuubi's body. No. The Kyuubi was sealed with that final cry. Along with that sudden yell, Naruto felt a sudden surge of power and began to cry once more. After gathering herself, Kushina seized Naruto. She calmly said, "Shush shush shush shush, it's okay Naruto, it's okay." When Minato awoke, Jiraiya was by his side. As everyone gathered and Jiraiya gave Minato an explanation of what had happened, Minato nodded yes as Kushina approached him holding Naruto. It goes without saying that Minato was unhappy with the way things had turned out. Look Minato, I know you're upset, but you know as well as anyone here this the shinobi lifestyle. But don't forget the old man made this choice. Nothing we said would have changed his mind anyway. Minato, I didn't want him to do it either, but I'm grateful to him, Kushina replied. She said, because he gave us the chance to watch Naruto grow up. He'll need us now more than ever since we can't keep the fact the Kyuubi was here and just suddenly vanished a secret. It doesn't matter how everyone treats me, but I want to at least keep Naruto safe. The other shinobi appeared and examined the damaged area. And Anbu said, Lord Hokage, what happened here? Call an emergency meeting of the village council. I'll explain there. For now take third Lord Hokage's body and inform Asuma Sarutobi, Minato stated. As all of the Leaf Ninja went to work, he said, yes, Lord Hokage. Minato had Jiraiya follow him since he still needed to check on something before anyone else, especially Danzo, noticed. They went and located the masked man's body and began examining it. Both of them were aware that he would exploit this kind of circumstance. Minato said, what do you think? With everything that happened and seeing as this guy got to do all this damage and slip through the barrier. Naturally one would assume Madara Uchiha, but it's not for certain since his name is often used as an alias to strike fear in people. No way to know for sure. Whoever he is took extreme measures to make sure we never know. He had his own seals set in case he died. First is the mask, no way to remove it without it blowing us off with a 10-mile radius explosion. Any other attempts to examine his body will have the same result or worse, Jiraiya clarified. What kind of man would go this far to hide his identity? There's no way know if he's even related to the Uchiha clan since he was clearly using Sharingan. I do see your point. He probably wanted to known as that. As no one like you told me already, this man obviously had some dangerous ideology. No way to know if he even had accomplices in some organization, so we'll have to keep our wits up while just pretty much living our day-to-day lives. Looks like I got more work to do along with keeping my tabs on Orochimaru. Let's at least seal the body away till we can properly dispose of it, Jiraiya replied as he opened a scroll to hide the corpse. Let's go, don't want to be late for this meeting, right? As they took off and headed toward the Hokage Tower, Minato said, right. Once there, Kaharu and Homura raised even more questions on the civilian council side. After calming everyone down, Minato explained everything that had happened. The young Hokage continued to tell Kaharu and Homura that Kushina was the Jinchuriki, which infuriated them. The civilian council demanded the deaths of Naruto and Kushina. Kushina didn't give a damn about what people thought of her, but she also wasn't going to allow anyone to threaten her child. Her friends passed her. At that moment Kushina and Minato were surrounded by the leaders of shinobi clans and their spouses. To his surprise, Minato was certain that at least a few of them would turn against Kushina. Then Sume said something. Kushina was crying once more, expressing her happiness at having such wonderful friends. Here's a tip for you guys: never go threatening mother's child. You may just lose your life for it. Danzo remained silent because he knew that it was currently impossible to get Naruto in his route. In addition, Minato passed a law that forbade anyone from discussing what had actually happened unless they wished for an instant death. When they got home that evening, Kushina was on their bed nursing Naruto. He was hungry, too. At last, they got him into some baby clothes as well, just orange pajamas for the entire body. When she was done, she started giving him back pats so he could burp before going to sleep. Minato observed her natural ability. They put him in his crib, which was right next to their bed. After burping him, Kushina said, "Good night, my little Naruto. I love you." Minato added, "Good night, son." His voice was as full of love as Kushina's. After that, they fell asleep, prepared to take on whatever the world had in store for them. Things were difficult at first, as was to be expected. People are glaring at Kushina and whispering behind her back that they wish she and Naruto were dead. However, it didn't really bother her, primarily because she was aware of who her true friends were, and that was important. After some time to recover, Kushina and her friends, Sume, Makoto, and Yoshino, visited Saya, Hiyoshi's wife, who had just given birth to her daughter Hinata. Sume brought Kiba and Hana with him, while Makoto left Sasuke with Itachi and Fugaku. Knowing that Shikaku would be taking a nap with him, Yoshino also held Shikamaru in her arms. Since Minato was taking care of his Hokage responsibilities and Tsunade and Shizune were restoring the medical corps, Kushina also had Naruto with her. Jiraiya was back on the road, continuing his research for his next book and keeping an eye on Orochimaru. Yoshino allowed Shikamaru to sleep in her arms until he was ready to eat, while Hana played with her boisterous younger brother. While they were there to let the babies sleep, Saya invited her friends to stay in Hinata's room if they so desired. Naruto dozed off as they arrived, so Kushina accepted her offer. They were all awestruck by Hinata while they were trying to get a quick photo of her sleeping. Saya allowed her to sleep next to Naruto when they located the camera. Kushina then indicated something. Kushina gestured for them to look, whispering, "Guys look, look." When they saw Hinata cuddling up to Naruto and blushing slightly, they were even more amazed. Naruto continued to sleep as if nothing had happened. "Quick Saya, take the picture." Saya took another one for Kushina and handed it to her, saying, "Okay, I'm on it." As Kushina put it, "This is so cute." Due to his hunger, Shikamaru felt compelled to cry at that moment, which set off a chain reaction with the other infants in the room. Kiba, Hinata, and Naruto soon followed in an attempt to soothe their infants. The mothers took them. As she started to feed him, she remarked, "Oh, Shikamaru, you are definitely your father's son." Hinata was able to fall back asleep after hearing Saya's comforting words. There, Hinata, it's okay, it's okay. You know it's funny, Hiyashi always seems to have trouble with Hinata at first." Kushina held Naruto and gave him his pacifier, saying, "Oh yeah? But I know he's trying his best to build a bond with her. I know it's not easy being the head of a clan and being a father. He's actually jealous at how Minato makes it look easy," Saya replied. Kushina laughed at the thought of Hiyashi panicking with a sobbing Hinata in his arms and said, "Easy? No, if anything it's the opposite for Minato. In that whole first month Naruto would just cry every time Minato held him. I guess that was his way of letting him know he was still tense about holding him, but after some practice and learning how to soothe Naruto he got it. I'm sure Hiyashi will get it eventually." "If you're wondering, I actually had Hisashi record some of his panicking moments with Hinata," said Saya. With a drop of perspiration on her face, Kushina remarked, "Saya, how you can be so kind and caring while at the same time devious is beyond me." Saya maintained her typical smile. "I guess I owe it to hanging around you, Makoto and Sume so much," Saya laughed. Sume remarked, "Hey, talking about the old days." Makoto remarked, "I don't think we're that old, Sume," as they all sat down. Sume laughed and said, "Says you who went ahead and got pregnant at 18. Makoto laughed evilly and said, "You weren't exactly any older than I was when you were pregnant with Hana. At least I didn't get drunk when it happened." "Oh, so you want to go there now, huh? Alright, let's leave it at that, you two. Lord knows you don't want Hana confused as to what you're referring to." Kushina responded their day went well as they talked about their time at the academy and anticipated that each of them would find a different kind husband, especially Yoshino, who of all people had to marry Shikaku. Although she is aware that she loved him, she occasionally questions how she can tolerate him given that he can occasionally be worse than Shikamaru. They can only hope for the basic tranquility they currently experience in their lives. The Kyuubi was sealed 9 months ago. Little Naruto is now 9 months old and quite the energetic child, which Minato thinks comes from Kushina along with his excitable nature. Minato didn't have much to do in the office today because tomorrow was a meeting with the elders for an upcoming Chunin exam. Naruto was crawling around the living room, and Minato was following him because they were playing a game of chase. Minato heard Naruto laugh aloud as he said, "I'm gonna get ya." He then began to crawl away from his father's voice because he enjoyed being chased by his father. "Daddy's gonna get you, Naruto." He hears his son's laughter once more as he keeps crawling away, laughing as loudly as his tiny voice could. Kushina was watching them play while attempting to capture a playful Naruto. Before she knew it, Naruto was hiding behind her legs. Kushina pretended not to see him by making facial gestures. When he looked around Kushina's leg, he saw his father saying, "Boo." Naruto laughed in shock as Minato lifted him up and began to tickle his stomach. "Oh, where did you go, Naruto?" Naruto asked. Kushina switched off the camera and put it down. Naruto eagerly leapt for Kushina's arms as she said, "Okay, sweetie, come to mommy now. Time for you to get cleaned up." Naruto took a handful of Kushina's hair. His mother's hair has always captivated him, ever since he first learned to grasp objects. Naruto and Kushina shared a unique bond. Naruto always calmed down when Kushina held him, regardless of how much he sobbed when he was upset, ill, or experiencing gum pain from teething. Everyone was shocked to learn that Kushina had the patience of a saint when it came to Naruto, but she would still lose her cool if someone irritated her. As she led him to the baby bathtub, which was ready for Naruto's bath and had warm water, he yammered on with baby words. She began bathing him after taking off his clothes. Minato used this time to make sure he had everything he would need for tomorrow's meeting as she was giving Naruto a bath. Kushina was heard laughing with him. Minato grinned, although he was still unhappy about the third replacing him with the Kyuubi's ceiling. He was happy to spend these days with his family and wouldn't want to exchange them for anything. Kushina finished bathing him and was drying him off in 15 minutes. Minato, can you hold him for a minute while I get his pajamas? Minato grabbed Naruto and said, sure, come here kiddo. Naruto yammered more baby talk while surveying his surroundings. As Naruto began yammering baby talk once more, Minato remarked, he has all my physical traits but his personality is definitely Kushina's. I know you and your mom have a special bond kiddo, and it may be a selfish request from your dad, but I hope I get to be your first word. Minato said to him. Minato grinned at him until he became aware of his trembling and somewhat labored breathing, which was eventually followed by tears. As Kushina ran back with a diaper and pajamas for Naruto, Minato exclaimed, oh. Kushina looks like his gums are hurting again. With his little teeth erupting and his gums hurting once more, Naruto was beginning to cry out completely. Kushina quickly changed him into full-body pajamas and diapers. Thanks to her ninja skills and patient maternal instincts, she began massaging his gums while holding him and directed a green chakra onto her index finger after Naruto began teething. Tsunade taught her this by numbing his gums. This technique allows Naruto's teeth to erupt without causing him undue discomfort. Even though Naruto had calmed down, he was still crying a little. Kushina said placidly, shush, it's okay, what a good boy you were. That wasn't so bad, was it? Naruto was growing drowsy and hungry after she was done. I know sweetie, mommy knows. Minato addressed her, saying, you really gotta teach me how you got to be so patient with him. As she got him his bottle and fed him, Kushina joked, I guess that means you still got a lot to learn, right, daddy? Naruto's small hands are gripping it. Minato said, you should get ready soon. Kushina said, oh, can't we take him with us? She and Minato would go out on their own without Naruto for the first time tonight since the assault. Kushina has not left her infant behind. To everyone's surprise, she turned into one of those controlling and overly worried mothers when it came to her child. As Naruto looked up at him and continued to drink from his bottle, Minato rubbed his hair and said, Kushina, I understand how you feel, but Tsunade and Shizune promised to watch over him while we were out by SDs. We haven't had a night to ourselves for a while. Naruto will be just fine. While Naruto just stared at them and continued to drink from his bottle, Kushina said, I know, but he's my little baby. I can't help but worry about him when I'm not around him. Minato held her and kissed her to reassure her that everything would be alright. After Kushina let out a defeated sigh, Naruto dropped his bottle on the ground to indicate that he was done eating. Kushina moved him up on her shoulder so she could burp him, and Minato picked it up. While his mother was attempting to burp him, Naruto simply kept looking around. For a child his age, his burp was rather loud. Kushina laughed and grinned, saying, yep. He's an Uzumaki alright. As Kushina continued to rock Naruto and hum a lullaby, Naruto was beginning to nod off. Naruto dozed off on his mother's shoulder after that. Minato followed Kushina into the bedroom adjacent to their master bedroom, where she laid him down. She put him down and gave him a forehead kiss. Given Naruto's name, it was only fitting that she would refer to her son as, good night my little fishcake. She then proceeded to put on one of our outfits, which included tight black shorts and a black shirt with the Uzumaki symbol on the back. Despite being a mother, she still has tomboyish tastes, and Minato wouldn't have her any other way. When Tsunade arrived, Shizune was prepared to watch the kids for the night. Kushina explained in great detail what to do in the event that Naruto woke up, had a tantrum after waking up, where his bottles were, where the baby formula was kept, and that if they were going to let him crawl around to exhaust himself, they had to make sure that all dangerous objects were present. She made a list of the things she thought were unsafe for her young son to play with and gave it to her. As Minato began dragging her to the door, Tsunade remarked, okay, I got it, now go on your date before I feel like I'm back at the academy. Minato knew that if she was left alone, this would take all night. As the door closed, Kushina said, wait, another thing? Wait, I haven't told you about his allergies yet. As she walked to the streets, Minato responded, honey, They've got this, they're both two of the best medics in the village and they'll be good to him. Naruto also loves Auntie and Shizune, there's no reason to be worried. She still felt as though she hadn't covered everything that was crucial in terms of her baby's welfare. Minato laughed at the idea, thinking, if she's this worried about him at this age, can't wait to see her react when he says he goes on his first date. She asked, what's so funny? Minato gave her his customary smile and remained silent. They had been gone for an hour after settling in. Tsunade and Shizune reviewed some blood test results that had been received that day. Besides Tsunade, the baby monitor was prepared to respond as soon as Naruto awoke. Okay Shizune, have this one set an appointment for next week? Tsunade responded. The woman answered, yes, ma'am. A faint cry could be heard from the baby monitor as they were doing that. Guess that's our cue. Tsunade enthusiastically responded, Godmother to the rescue. Little Naruto was sitting up and requesting assistance when she entered the room. He raised his arms to indicate that he wanted to be carried out. As soon as he saw Tsunade as she picked him up, she said, okay, I'm coming. She wiped the snot from his nose and dried his tiny eyes as she carried him to the living room. She said, did you have a bad dream? It's okay, Auntie Tsunade will make it go away. Yes, she will. Yes, she will. Shizune approached her and gave his stomach a tickle. How's my tough little man doing? Stated Shizune. Grinning, Naruto was in Tsunade's lap as they sat down on the couch. Since this is the first time Naruto has ever had a babysitter, he searched the area as though seeking something or someone, and it turned out to be Tsunade. Hey, it's alright, Mommy and Daddy just went out for some alone time. They'll be back, so for now how about some quality time with your godmother and Aunt Shizune? Tsunade replied. Shizune then said, covering her face. Where's the baby? She asked Naruto, who was staring at her when she revealed her face to him. There he is, she shouted a little, and Naruto laughed a little because he found the surprise of it all funny. Shizune played that game with him for a few rounds until Naruto indicated that he was ready to be put down and crawl. Shizune took care to hide everything that could endanger a child from Naruto's view. He crawled around the living room table. Tsunade was lost in her own thoughts and amusedly observed a crying baby and her saying a few words to someone that seemed to indicate she loved them more than life itself were in her mind when she saw Naruto staring at her with his tiny blue eyes. She snapped out of it before Naruto burst out laughing and resumed his crawl. She stared back without blinking. She saw him do something for the first time and watched him crawl a little more. He tried to stand on his own 2 feet by placing his hands on the couch close to where she was sitting. Shizune. Look, Naruto is about to stand, Shizune exclaimed as she hurried out of the kitchen to witness Naruto's first real attempt at standing. As soon as he nearly had it, he fell on his ass because his legs were trembling a lot. Instead of crying, Naruto gave it another go. Shizune said, hey, how about letting us give a hand? Naruto made a small sound and sulked at her as soon as she took hold of his arm. Tsunade laughed at the way Naruto stared at Shizune and said, Shizune, I think you better let him do it on his own. Shizune sat on the floor and watched him try again, saying, okay. But if you need help, you know we're right here. Tsunade wasn't overly shocked. He would be obstinate about doing things himself because he was Kushina's son. It appeared impossible for young Naruto to survive one night, but they were astounded that despite only being 9 months old, Naruto showed no signs of giving up. He wanted to keep trying no matter how many times he failed. Naruto eventually succeeded after nearly 25 attempts. He was starting to understand standing, even though he was using the couch as leverage. He received cheers and applause from Tsunade and Shizune. With all the attention he was receiving, Naruto laughed loudly and put his free hand in his mouth. At this point, Naruto was starting to get hungry and finally motioned to be picked up as Tsunade prepared his bottle of formula. Shizune picked him up. He began to drink from his bottle, and she handed it to him. Naruto yawned after finishing and getting burped. In response, Naruto simply rubbed his eyes until they heard the door open and saw Kushina and Minato enter. I guess you're finally ready to go to bed for the night. Kushina had quite a bit to drink, but she wasn't overly inebriated because her cheeks were flushed. According to Minato, their date went well until they met Mikoto. They then talked about their past together, which turned into a little contest to see who could drink the most. Kushina chose to ignore everything and focus solely on her young son, who noticed his mother's return and showed signs of exhaustion. She kissed him on the cheek and said, "You're really tired now, aren't ya?" Naruto grabbed some of her red hair and gestured toward her. He was removed from Shizune's arms by Kushina. She cradled his face and said, "Mommy missed you too." Minato gazed at them, amazed. After saying their goodbyes, Tsunade and Shizune departed. Naruto was put to sleep in his crib by Kushina. She heard Naruto making his baby noises, so she turned around as she was about to get him a new blanket to sleep in. "Minato!" she shouted. Stopping in her tracks thinking it was an emergency, Minato ran. "What is it? What happened? Look, Naruto, he's standing!" exclaimed Kushina, sobbing uncontrollably that her young son had mastered standing on his first attempt after giving it some thought. Minato realized that Tsunade had indeed mentioned that Naruto had a small surprise in store for them. He thought to himself, "I'll just let her think that for now." Naruto used the rails on his crib to keep himself upright as he walked around in a playful manner. Kushina asked him, "Do you want to sleep with us?" As Naruto raised his arms once more to be carried as she made her way to their bedroom, Kushina picked up his favorite frog plush toy and handed it to him. Naruto was sleeping between his parents when she laid him down. "He's really growing up so fast." "Yeah, we don't just have to have one, you know," he said. Kushina looked at Naruto as he prepared to go to sleep and said, "Sounds nice." She kissed Minato and said, "But maybe later after he's older." They both bid Naruto good night. A week later, while Minato is performing his Hokage duties, Kushina is getting Naruto ready for a playdate with her friend's kids. Kushina asked Naruto, "Okay, Naruto, are you ready to meet other little babies and make friends?" But all she heard were baby noises. They headed to the park after Naruto got dressed and ready to go. Makoto, Saya, Sume, and Yoshino were there with their children. As usual, Kushina received death glares from many of the other mothers, who chose to ignore her and go to her friends instead. The young ones are placed in the infants' play area. In the playground, Itachi and Hana were engaging in their own games with children of their own age. 10 minutes later, many mothers withdrew their infants from the playbox in order to keep them away from Naruto. 3 families stopped by so their infants could play with other people. These were the Harunos, Yamanakas, and Akamichis. They were all familiar with Yoshino, so she asked everyone to introduce themselves. The 3 families who joined them were curious about Kushina because there have been rumors circulating in the village about her and her son, such as that she seduced Minato with a demonic charm or that he is only with her because of the baby. After responding to them in a relaxed manner, Mr. Haruno could see from the expression in her eyes that she was just as human as they were, and the other mothers could see that she was a decent person, particularly if she was prepared to tolerate the villagers in order to protect her child. Naruto was having a great time playing with the other children. Playing with Kiba and Hinata seemed to bring him joy. He was doing well until another black-haired baby wanted to play with his plush frog. Kushina recognized Sasuke when she turned to see who it was. Now, Sasuke and Naruto were squabbling over the plush frog that was making irate baby noises. In an attempt to defuse the argument, their mothers intervened as she took the frog away from Naruto and handed it to Sasuke, who was being held by Makoto. Kushina remarked, "Naruto, come on, fishcake. Let's give Sasuke a little turn with the frog, K." Sasuke was content until Naruto broke down in tears because he had lost his favorite toy. Or not, after taking it from him and giving it back to Naruto. Sasuke broke down in tears. Oh dear, what to do? It's their first playdate and they're already fighting. Makoto replied. Naruto was drawn to Sasuke's tears for some reason. Makoto and Kushina glanced at Naruto, who appeared to be thinking about this. Then, without warning, Naruto placed his frog for Sasuke to play with in front of him. Sasuke stopped crying when he saw it, but the tears were still streaming down his face. He grabbed the frog and laughed because he was playing with something that his young mind thought was cool and enjoyable. Now that is a surprise. As Naruto returned to Kiba and Hinata, with Sasuke trailing behind with the frog, Kushina remarked, "Oh, that's my little fishcake." These 9 tiny infants soon found pleasure in one another's company. There were a few minor baby fights here and there, but they were quickly settled. The children were exhausted and ready to go to sleep at last. After grabbing their children, the mothers started to make their way home before splitting up. Saya, Kushina, and Makoto traveled partially in the same direction. Hana gave Itachi a wave goodbye. "Itachi, let's go," Makoto said. "Again, coming," said Itachi. Itachi ran to his mother and said, "Guess I'll see you later." Before they had to split up, the 3 mothers and their kids were strolling together. Comfortably, Naruto slept in his mother's arms. Kushina tolerated the death glares and whispers and kept on walking. When it came to her abilities as a shinobi, she was no slouch. She was on high alert in case anyone attempted to harm her child. Fortunately, today was one of the easier days. She returned without any problems. Since Minato was expected home in 2 hours, she put Naruto on his crib to finish his nap while she went to prepare dinner. Things were going well in the Hokage Tower, especially now that Shizune had agreed to be his new assistant and Tsunade had taken on the roles of counselor, backup, and Hokage seat replacement in the event of an emergency. Everything was fine until a young Jonin burst through the door with some unfortunate news. "Lord Hokage," Minato said. "Whoa, Calm down there, Azuma, what's wrong? Sir, the body of the masked man who attacked the village, it's gone, Azuma replied. Minato exclaimed, What do you mean it's gone? I was doing an inventory check as you ordered, then I noticed the scroll his body was sealed in was acting up. I was about to call in the sealing specialists till it suddenly opened and summoned the body only. Only what? Inquired Minato. The body wasn't his, and before I could get a good look from all that smoke the body deteriorated. The only thing left where the body deteriorated was this small tree, Azuma clarified. Minato asked himself, but how? When the man in the mask was obviously sealing his chakra, how could he and Jiraiya think he was a fake, and when did he have time to flip a switch? As he recalled his words clearly, Minato asked himself, unless he wasn't alone that night. That's the only way a switch like that could be pulled off. If we had a fake this whole time, then where is the real masked man? And started to worry before he killed him. He recalled him saying, the 9 tails will be mine someday, as well as the rest of this world. There are plenty of ways to go about it. We also see the masked man lying on a bed, awaiting the healing of his wounds, deep within a cave that is concealed well with the wasteland graveyard. A cloaked figure, half black and half white, said, it was lucky I was nearby. You would have bled to death, and that would halt the plan. True, luckily Izanagi is a special jutsu that isn't so easily sealed away. I'm sure that clone you left them must have dissolved by now, and he must have caught on that I am still alive. For now I will rest and remain in the shadows and wait for him to prepare the organization. When that time comes, be prepared to be counted among their top members. We must make him believe he is leading it while I hide in the lower ranks as their buffoon. I'm counting on you, Zetsu, the man in the mask replied. Zetsu answered as though he were speaking in 2 voices. Understood, blackout effect. And now we're back in Konoha. It's nighttime. And Minato was just heading home when he realized he had forgotten to do something, which was, Kushina, I'm home. Bang. Minato's face hit the ground after he was punched in the head. Kushina can't stand being stood up to, especially by her husband, who promised to let her know if he would be late for dinner, but he forgot to do so. In a furious tone, Kushina exclaimed, am I not too? As her hair flew everywhere with everything that had happened in a single day, Minato realized that he had forgotten once more. He also noticed that his forgetfulness had awakened his wife's red Hanabaro mode. I made you a nice dinner and now it's cold. Minato undoubtedly had that serene sweat drop effect as he nervously grinned while trying to come up with an explanation for his tardiness, forgetting to send a shadow clone. Well, Minato gave a detailed explanation as she watched her baby play with his frog. Kushina calmed down a little, understood, and started to worry about his safety. Minato used his one and only weapon, a smile that would make her weak in the knees, to ask, so do you forgive me? She said, oh Minato, and appeared to be in a good mood. Unfortunately, things are more complicated when it comes to the Uzumakis, particularly the women in that clan. Minato was told to heat his own damn dinner tonight while he was sleeping on the couch because the door to the master bedroom was locked and he was left in the hallway holding a blanket and pillow. Yes, his own wife is the only person the 4th Hokage, also known as the Yellow Flash, cannot defeat, just like all the strong men who came before him. Sigh. Well, it's not all bad, she shouted through the door, and don't even think of sneaking in here like last time. Naruto yelled and laughed like a baby. After saying, even my own son is against me tonight, Minato went to his bed and fell asleep on the couch. He thought to himself, I think Shikaku would call this situation troublesome. In the bedroom that is the master, Naruto was put in his pajamas by Kushina. She remarked, HMMPH, stupid Minato. Naruto rambled baby words while glancing at his mother. Well, I don't hate him, but still that forgetfulness of his is so irritating even when we were dating. Did I ever tell you about the time he was late for our anniversary date because he also promised to train with Kakashi the day before? She told Naruto the story until he fell asleep. Sigh. What do you think, Fishcake? Should I forgive your daddy tomorrow? She asked, receiving a da. In response, Kushina also fell asleep. Naruto woke Kushina up the following morning because he was hungry. Okay, Fishcake, we'll get you some breakfast. She carried Naruto with her to get his baby food from the kitchen. She turned on the lights and saw her favorite flowers and snacks. Freshly baked dumplings with camellia blossoms circling them, and in front was a note from Minato. She opened it and it said, Kushina, I know you're still mad at me, but I want to let you know that I apologize. After giving it some thought, she turned to face Naruto and said, well, Naruto, should I? Okay, I forgive you, she said as she turned around and was kissed passionately by her husband after Naruto gestured for his father to hold him while Minato grabbed him and kissed his cheek. Naruto looked behind her and laughed, and she naturally realized what he was laughing at. Naruto, did you miss your father last night? Naruto laughed as Minato spoke to him, shocking his parents. Da 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 da. With shocked expressions on their faces, Minato and Kushina turned to face Naruto. What were you saying? Minato inquired. Dada. After Naruto saw how much of an impact that word had on them, he repeated it again. Dada. He uttered his first word. He's speaking. Minato shouted with delight. My infant is speaking. You know, I can't believe he's speaking. The morning became exciting for them. Kushina exclaimed. Although the future was uncertain, they valued moments like these as a family, and they would face any danger together. Naruto would undoubtedly have friends of his own to support him through any difficulties that may arise. Naruto is now 11 months old and he is taking his first family vacation with his mom and dad, and they were traveling to one of the villages that was a bit on away from the village, but nothing the flying thunder god technique can't them back home in a flash. Well, anyway, it was a city that had lots of things from beaches to hot springs and other things to enjoy, and this family vacation is about to have an unexpected addition. Naruto finally grasped walking a week ago, and boy did he enjoy it more than crawling. Of course, this meant Minato and Kushina had to be extra watchful of him since he loves to get into all sorts of places even when he was just crawling. He learned some extra words like mama and no. Naruto was enjoying the sight of a new area. Minato had Tsunade watch the village and Shizune watch Tsunade to make sure she actually did the job instead of drinking and gambling. As the family walked around the city to sightsee, Naruto was completely excited, holding his mother's hand while walking at his own pace, much to his parents' amusement. Minato noted, he's going to exhaust himself before we make any progress. So, what are your options? He is on his first vacation with us. You don't get to leave the village before you become a ninja very often. Naruto, correct? Kushina asked Naruto with a smile, and Naruto just replied with, Mama. Just then something got Naruto's attention, and at that moment Kushina let her guard down when saw a sign that said dumplings on a 30% sale. Soon as Naruto slipped out of her hand and noticed the feeling of his hand was gone, she turned and saw Naruto chasing a cat into the street. Naruto! Kushina yelled as her and Minato noticed a runaway horse about to run him over, but just as he was saved at the last second, Kushina and Minato ran to Naruto and his savior. Naruto. The person said, he's okay. Upon closer examination, it turned out to be a young girl, perhaps 3 or 4 years old, who showed them Naruto, who was beginning to cry due to a small bruise on his arm. Ah, fish cake. Never again should you frighten me like that. Let me see your arm, Kushina said as she began using medical jutsu to treat his bruise. Meanwhile, Minato thanked the young girl whose hat had fallen off due to shoddy stitching and showed that she had red hair, albeit not as red as Kushina's. I'm grateful. I don't think we got your name, but for saving our son, Minato remarked. Tateyuya. What a lovely name. You did something brave, but a little careless. As Kushina looked at the girl and saw that she was slightly bleeding from her knee following that jump, Minato clarified, your parents would be just as scared as we were for our son. Here, let me tend to that wound before it gets infected. While Kushina used her medical jutsu to heal the knee, she became aware of how ripped her clothes were and started to worry about her parents. Tateyuya, on the other hand, blushed at the way this woman was tending to what she was beginning to regard as a minor injury, and she felt a warm sensation from her that she was unable to describe. When she was done, she stood up. I must return. It didn't take them long to figure out where her parents, or at least her mother, worked, so she said, bye, as she dashed into the area of town that, let's just say, is where grown men go. Kushina, do you believe she may have ties to the Uzumaki clan? Minato inquired. I won't know till I either study this blood sample or just ask her mother directly, replied Kushina. True, so, she said to him before he could finish, so, you watch Naruto while I go see if I can find her. Please, you think I'm gonna trust you to go into an area where that pervert sage would more than likely hang out in? She said that Minato knows Kushina well enough that she wouldn't miss a chance to find out if any of her fellow clan members were nearby. As Naruto was tugging at his hair, he thought to himself, just be careful. Kushina was attempting to find Tateyuya, but it was challenging to locate a young girl where adult men congregate. She thought to herself, I really hope Jiraiya doesn't bring Naruto to one of these places. Then she noticed a shade of red just down the street. As soon as some people moved aside, she finally saw her, but she was sitting alone in an alley. She was about to approach her when she felt someone grab her butt. Hey, this place is new to you. Would you like to enjoy yourself with me, hotcakes? Asked an elderly businessman, but Kushina quickly turned around and pummeled him while pretending to smile. After receiving some strange looks, she said, sorry, but I'm already taken and a very happy mother and wife, thank you. She then went to Tateyuya, who had apparently fallen asleep with her head on her knees, and Kushina sitting next to her. Tateyuya woke up at that moment, looked up, and became a little alarmed to see the same woman from before. Hey, sorry, didn't intend to frighten you. Why are you in this place? She inquired. I was going to pose the same query to you. Why are you not with your parents at home? Kushina inquired. I don't know, my dad and mom is with that guy again, she responded. What? Does your mother? She goes with guys and is gone for a long time. That doesn't answer why you aren't at least in your house. House? Don't tell me, she muttered to herself. Where do you and your mother sleep, Kyuubi? This is where I typically sleep. Mama works non-stop. The conversation continued about how things have been for as long as she can remember, and she reached the point where it sounded like her mom might have found someone who could take them in. She says to stay here because it draws away customers, I think, she said. I understand. I'm hoping it goes well, me too. I sincerely hope it's that easy. All I can hope is that this person and her mother have a good relationship. I would be devastated if this crushed her dreams. Her mother has also never given her a birthday celebration. That's what a mother does. As she continued to enumerate her grievances regarding Kyuubi's mother, Kushina uttered these words in her mind. Are you all right? Kyuubi inquired, observing that Kushina's hair was bouncing around and that she was wearing an irate expression. Well, yes, I was just pondering. In any case, would it be okay if I spent some time with you until your mother returned? Kushina answered. I'm sure it must get lonely sitting here every day. I suppose, however. What about your child, Naruto? Oh, he'll get along well with his dad. Kushina smiled and said, besides, they could use some alone time. Minato and Naruto were back at the resort where Naruto had just learned how to run, and Minato was getting tired. Naruto might be a tougher opponent than the time he fought with I and Killer Bee. Back with Kushina and Kyuubi. The sun was setting and there was no sign of Kyuubi's mother. No sign of her, and she's still waiting for her. Kushina didn't like the man. She's limo pulled up behind them. Kyuubi, she said, I am going to be living with him from now on. Kushina had a bad feeling about the direction this was going. So I didn't mention that you would live with him, Kyuubi. This is goodbye. Take care of yourself, she said before turning around and making her way to the limousine. Mom, hold on. When some guards pushed Kyuubi back after she yelled and tried to chase after them, Kushina put her foot down, knocked them out, and assisted Kyuubi in approaching her mother. What in the world is wrong with you? How could you simply leave your own daughter in such a state? What sort of mother would do that? Kushina yelled as tears were coming out of her eyes as she saw Kyuubi completely broken and shocked at what her mother just said to her. Sure, she wasn't around, but she always believed she at least loved her. Don't you have any sense of shame? The world is difficult here. Survival is the lesson. I want this. That won't change no matter what you say or do. Take her for all I care if you want her, she said, walking past Kushina and getting into the limo. Her lover trailed behind, and the vehicle drove away from them. After explaining everything to Minato, who had just put Naruto to sleep, Kushina took Kyuubi back to the resort and even prepared her a meal. Kyuubi didn't eat, but she still had a blank expression on her face. Kyuubi, Kushina called out as she touched her shoulder and received a reaction, looking at her. I'm sorry, Kushina said. Yes, I wish that hadn't occurred, but keeping it inside is unhealthy. You should cry if you want to weep until you are unable to do so. Your mother made the biggest error of her life, and you are a very sweet girl. Kushina's words seemed to have resonated with her because she began to cry and then sobbed until she was crying uncontrollably. It's okay, Kushina said, holding her and comforting her. One she'll regret for the rest of her life. It's going to be all right. Minato entered and joined in to help calm the poor girl. As an orphan, he had never met his parents, but he could relate to her current state of anxiety because he had never known whether or not they loved her. Between sobs, Kyuubi uttered, Don't leave me. It's all right, we won't abandon you, I promise, Kushina replied to her. After a while Kyuubi cried herself to sleep. They put her to sleep on the bed they slept in. They slept on a makeshift futon. It was morning and Kyuubi was the last one to wake up. She saw the Namikaze family with their baby and getting ready to eat. Kyuubi, good morning. Come and join us for breakfast, she said. Kyuubi approached the table slowly and sat down next to Naruto, who glanced at the new person sitting next to him, grinned, and laughed, which made her smile. For some reason breakfast went rather well, and Kyuubi spoke up as Kushina put away the dishes. Well, I'm grateful for looking after me. I don't want to cause trouble. Kyuubi turned around and said, You were all nice, and I hope to meet again. She was crying because, to be honest, she didn't want to leave because these were the nicest people she had ever met. Minato then spoke. Why the depressing farewell? She was surprised by that. Kyuubi, would you like to live with us? What? Kyuubi, I want you to be a part of our family. Even though I know I could never be your mother's replacement and I don't plan to, I want you to have a true family experience because you're a good girl. You don't even need to give us a call. Kyuubi gave her a hug before she was done. Kushina gave her a hug and said, Thank you, mama. The proposal made her happy, and despite the fact that she had only known them for a day, They showed her more concern than her biological mother. "You're welcome," she said suddenly. A small pair of arms encircled Kyuubi, and she turned to see that it was Naruto. He didn't fully comprehend the situation, but he knew that hugging someone who was crying would make them feel better. At least that's how it worked when he saw his parents kissing. "Looks like you got a big sister now, Fishcake, and you got a little brother to look after. Do you think you can manage it?" Kushina smiled as she asked. Happily, Kyuubi replied, "Yes ma'am. We'll take care of the adoption paperwork, and I'll have Auntie or Shizune examine you once we return to the Leaf Village K." She nodded joyfully when Minato told her. "But before that, why don't we get you some actual clothes?" Kushina said as Kyuubi examined her outfit, which consisted of old, filthy clothes that were essentially torn. Kyuubi took a bath with Kushina, and she discussed the finer points of good hygiene while washing her hair, which took some time because it was already long and didn't appear to be properly cared for. "Hey Kyuubi, do you know anything about your family tree?" No. Kyuubi's response helped Kushina confirm her suspicions, but a blood test is still necessary to be certain. "My other mama said that they all died in a village during a war." "I understand. It appears that your hair has finally been cleaned. Alright, I'll teach you some tips to keep it tidy," Kushina said with a wink as Kyuubi nodded happily. This woman was her new mother and seemed to really care, but the emotional scar of being abandoned will take time to heal, and Kushina along with Minato intend to be the ones who help mend it. After the bath, Kushina had her dried but kept her in a bathrobe for children while Minato went looking for clothes that would suit her. Kushina had an idea of what types of clothes suited her, so she gave him a list. While waiting, Naruto woke up and was walking about with bottle in hand and drinking away. Then he sat with Kyuubi on her lap. "Ah, he really likes you." "Why, you believe that? Why do you refer to him as Fishcake, by the way?" Kyuubi inquired, and Kushina's embarrassed, excited expression changed as she gave an explanation. "Hee, you know, it's mainly a nickname I gave him, despite being the name of a character from his godfather's book. His name is also an ingredient in ramen, you know." "Why do you say, yeah no?" "Well, sometimes I get so excited that I speak so quickly that I say things that don't make sense, you know." As Kyuubi and even Naruto were staring at her, Kushina retorted, "Please don't stare at me like that." Minato returned carrying the clothing Kushina had requested. As Kushina pushed Naruto out of the way and into the living room, Minato remarked, "Well, here they are." The bedroom door opened 15 minutes later, revealing "Gentlemen and my adorable little baby." Kushina told them, "Now you boys wait here. I present to you our newest member, who will soon go by the name Kyuubi Namikaze." Kushina exclaimed excitedly as she stood aside to show off Kyuubi's new appearance, which included a blue beanie hat, a white shirt with a red vest, black shorts that reached her knees and were semi-tight on her skin, and black ninja sandals. She appeared embarrassed, and Minato applauded while saying, "Ah." Naruto mimicked the gesture, but to him it was smacking his hands together. "I had a feeling that's what you were going for." Kyuubi's attire made him think of Kushina when she was younger. The only differences were that she wasn't as plump and didn't wear a beanie. "Well, I got the impression that she was interested in this style when I saw her wearing that old hat in them. How do you feel?" Kyuubi was asked by Kushina. She said, "They feel nice, thank you." She enjoyed the way these clothes felt. "How do you feel about becoming a ninja, by the way, Kyuubi?" Minato inquired. "A ninja?" Minato, scratching his head in shame at having forgotten that crucial detail, said, "Oh, right, we never got around to telling you that." He told her all about their origins, how Minato was the Hokage, and that they were now on vacation before asking if she would be interested in becoming a ninja. "Is it possible for me to be one?" "Yep, although you are still a bit young to start the academy, but if you want we can get you a head start by training you in the basics," replied Minato. "Yes." With excitement, she replied as she ran to him and gave him a hug. Minato said, "Okay then, but just know the path of a ninja is not easy, but as long as you keep believing in yourself and always have the guts to never give up, you'll be fine." She wondered if this was how all fathers or the remainder of the family vacation was spent teaching Kyuubi about the family and what to watch out for with Naruto, and his birthday was in a month. A week later, they returned to the Leaf Village and Kushina took Kyuubi for a checkup. Kyuubi was a little afraid because she had never had an immunization shot. Tsunade returned with the clipboard. "All right?" Kushina inquired. "Well, given her mother's background, normally a child who was conceived from that line of work had high chance of inheriting her mother's STDs or end up having weakened bones or lower blood pressure, but I guess we can owe it to the Uzumaki bloodline that she got lucky she was born healthy," Tsunade elaborated. "Uzumaki?" Kushina shouted. Yes, Tsunade clarified that Kyuubi had no idea what they were discussing. "I'm not sure if it's from her mother or father, but she definitely has Uzumaki DNA." "What does that signify?" Kyuubi inquired. It simply indicates that we are from the same clan in essence. We are related, Kushina clarified. You can't be my mother, then? She inquired. I can, of course. My love, I promise never to abandon you, she was pleased to hear Kushina say. You and Naruto are my little treasures. But Tsunade interrupted. But what? Kushina inquired. Tsunade said, she's still in need of her immunization shots. Kyuubi was a little alarmed by the long needle shot, and Kushina was actually trembling with fear. It's incredible that she isn't even your biological child. Speaking of shots, Kushina, you also deserve one Shizune. Tsunade yelled for her assistant to help retrain Kushina first since she was likely to give more trouble with her shot. After a lot of struggling from both of them, they received their shots. Kid, one thing you should know about her is that she is really bad at certain things even though she's a full-grown adult. Tsunade explained to Kyuubi as she stared at a whimpering Kushina. After that, Kushina bought some ninja training equipment and intended to show her Uzumaki clan traditions as well as letting Minato teach her some sealing jutsu, but they are hoping they can figure out what type of ninja she is before the academy. At the Hokage Tower, Minato was going through his usual paperwork while a shadow clone looked over the adoption paperwork for Kyuubi as well as getting her registered to live in the Leaf Village. The training was tricky and difficult, but she was enjoying it, especially since Kushina was helping her. Occasionally Naruto would run at them and they'd improvise a game to play with Naruto, while at the same time Kushina would teach Kyuubi chakra control. After explaining the importance of chakra control, the first month passed and just 2 weeks ago the adoption process was done and Kyuubi was now an official child of the Namikaze family. Kushina was enjoying the fun of having a daughter who surprisingly had a lot of her spunk growing up. Naruto seemed to love his new big sister a lot. Minato and Kyuubi spent enough time together, whether it's with Naruto or doing something as simple as fishing at a nearby river just outside the village. Tsunade saw this as a chance to teach a young mind the importance of winning in a game of chance, and of course I speak of gambling. Today is now Naruto's first birthday and everyone was getting things set up for him. Invitations were sent, but some couldn't make it. The ones who made it were the Uchihas, Hyugas, and Inuzukas. Everyone else had missions of their own or family vacations they were on. Naruto, Sasuke, Kiba, and Hinata were playing in the baby area, which was just the living room with a baby cage in between the openings so the little ones don't go running off. Each were walking at different paces. Sasuke had a faster pace than Naruto. Kiba was energetic, so he just ran from spot to spot, and Hinata seemed really nervous. She either took small steps or used the wall to stay steady. Naruto never seemed to mind Hinata being around him. She often uses his back to stand up when he's sitting. Was playing with Itachi and Hana even though they were older than her and were at the academy. Itachi mentioned how he might graduate early, but it was only rumor to him. Even though Hana reminded how he was already at the top of their class, they mostly told her to just do her best. The time came for the birthday cake and everyone was getting ready to sing happy birthday before Kushina could set him down on his seat. Naruto was moving his little body to Kyuubi. Is that fish cake? Ta 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 ta. Kushina knew what little Naruto wanted, but he was still learning Kyuubi's name and could only say the first 2 letters, calling her Ta-ta for the time being. Hey, Kyuubi, come here. Kushina called out her daughter and gestured for her to take a seat in front of her. Naruto appeared content as she placed him on her lap. Feel like part of our family, yet? Minato moved the cake in front of Naruto, and Kyuubi smiled at her brother as Minato lit the candle shaped like a 1 on the cake. He made the other children sitting in high chairs near Naruto looked excited as the lights dimmed. And then the song began, with Hana and Itachi clapping to the beat. She whispered to Kyuubi, who happily nodded and held her baby brother tightly as Kushina had shown her earlier. Happy birthday. I hope you have a wonderful birthday. Naruto, happy birthday. I hope you have a wonderful birthday. The song eventually came to blow out the candle. As she was filming the entire scene, Kushina said, come on fishcake, blow out the candle. Minato and Kyuubi were attempting to demonstrate how to blow, but Naruto wasn't doing as they asked. Instead, he simply stared at the candle until achoo! Naruto sneezed out his candle, not what they had in mind but humorous all the same as Naruto clapped. The lights were turned back on and cake was passed around, and later Naruto sat with Kushina as she helped him open his presents. The Uchihas got him a fox plushie that he really seemed to like, the Hyugas had a set of new clothes for him to try on, the Inuzukas got him some books to learn to read and speak more. Kyuubi, with Minato's help, got her new brother his first gift from her. It was a small box and Kushina opened it and it was locket-shaped in the Uzumaki clan symbol. Minato had placed small pictures in them, one side of Minato and Kushina and the other was Kyuubi. Kushina put around Naruto's neck and Naruto seemed to like it. The birthday was over as everyone went home. The cleaning was getting done by the parents as they both saw Kyuubi and Naruto on her bed, which is in the room she is sharing with Naruto. For the moment Naruto looked so comfortable sleeping on top of his sister that Kushina and Minato let them sleep. The next day was the day they would move to a bigger house to make room for Kyuubi. It's now been 11 years the Namikaze family is living in a bigger house from the apartment they lived in before. Naruto and Kyuubi grew up very well. Kyuubi has recently turned 15 and has recently made chunin with her squad. Kyuubi was able to open up more as she got used to living with her new family. Although like Kushina in her academy days, she really had a bad temper when someone made fun of her, whether it was for her hair or for the fact that most of the boys couldn't keep up with her as far as skill and chakra control went. Kushina felt proud when she graduated. Minato cried cause his little girl was growing up, and Naruto wanted to surpass her as well as his parents and prove to the whole village that he will be the next Hokage. The next ninja legend people will talk about. Kyuubi still had yet find what it is that she called her dream. She had hoped to find that answer sometime before she becomes a Jonin. Kyuubi grew up to be quite an eye for boys her age and a bit older. Kushina trusted her daughter's judgment. However, Minato, well, let's say from the first time she mentioned a boy, Minato would overreact like spy on her with shadow clones when she was training with her teammates. Her teammates are Sanowski wears a gray sleeveless shirt, black thin pants and wears many scrolls to summon the weapons and items needed to make his traps. He comes from a clan of trap masters. Every ambush, every kind of horrific trap you may think is only possible in movies the Yagyus have always made possible, make them quite fearsome if you let your guard down or try to out-trap or out-maneuver one. Their symbol is a raccoon, since the animal they make a pact with to summon are the raccoons, which is also why they have a black painting on their faces around the eyes to symbolize their proud connection to the raccoons. Sanowski is as devious as a raccoon, but it's that personality that his teams were con man. He talk his way out of a situation without needing to change his appearance too much with a transformation jutsu. He refers to that as his people skills, but it's mostly related to the fact his clan started out as a band of the Ives before the first Hokage helped them find a better calling and put those skills and their traps to good use, and have since been valuable allies to the Leaf and swore their loyalty to the village. Sanowski loves to use his people skills to swoon the girls and sweet talk them into dates, which you will see in the future. The other member is a mystery at the moment, and his family name is still a secret to all but the Hokage and Sensei in charge of him. For now all that is needed to know is that his name is Takaru. Now has seen his face since he makes it a point to hide it since the day he moved into the village. Kyuubi would usually talk to him since Sanowski is usually the type of she can't stand but is able to work him when on a mission. At most she considers a comrade since he peeped on her and got the beating of a lifetime for it. Takaru is always wearing armor similar to the samurais from the Land of Iron, only his had some custom looks to it, but it was enough to know he was originally from the Land of Iron at least. He never takes off the armor except when he is at his home. The only thing for sure about him is that he really seems to enjoy hero-based shows and comic books. Hence why most of the armors he wears have a similar look to those fictional heroes. When Naruto saw him for the first, he thought he would make an awesome superhero for the shinobi world. Takaru's combat prowess was second to none. His potential was great, but it was obvious to Minato's point of view that was holding back. Takaru's story will be told for another time. Let's focus on Naruto for now. Naruto was in his last week in the academy. His grades were pretty average, with Kushina or Minato and occasion Kyuubi helping him with his studies and jutsus. Naruto seemed to struggle with control over his chakra. The clone jutsu for some reason was his worst technique. Minato had an idea of what was wrong, but Kushina wasn't willing to take a risk on Naruto trying to use an advanced jutsu to prove a point, so the topic was put on hold. It was the day before the exam and Iruka noticed someone missing in his class till he saw the Hokage monument. "Oh God, Naruto. Till I return. Everyone, stay here and study," Iruka told his students while the students began talking. A certain blue-haired girl sighed as she heard her best friend since childhood's name being called out for another one of his pranks, but she had to admit he did make things lively at the Hokage Tower where Minato was looking over some reports till, "Lord Hokage. Hokage. Lord. We have a massive issues." Similar to Hinata. Minato's sigh. "Now what? And please don't tell me it's Naruto again," Minato remarked, pointing out that the majority of the villagers' complaints about Naruto these days focused more on his antics than the nine-tailed fox, which was decent but not particularly superior. "Once more, it's Naruto. We see Naruto's handiwork," and Minato was looking at it and saw that his face got the worst of it compared to the former three Hokage. He has painted graffiti all over the faces of the Hokage. Ah, a boy, okay. Locate Naruto and send him to the academy. Speaking of Naruto, he was running around the village avoiding well-trained Chunin. I'll let his teacher know what his punishment will be. Minato commanded the Chunin, who ran to his office. Ha ha ha, I'm too fast for you slowpokes, Naruto yelled as he then pulled a fast on some Chunins by hiding on the fence behind a sheet colored exactly like the wooden fence. Ha! Iruka and Tayuya apparently found him, and Iruka appeared worn out from all the running. Those guys make this too easy, Naruto said arrogantly until two individuals who were more familiar with his tricks than anyone else appeared in front of him. Oh. Hey, Naruto, I've finally located you, he uttered. Hi, Sensei. Iruka. Naruto nervously said, hey, sis. Little brother, don't you say, hey sis, to me? As she jumped, Naruto tied him down, and allowed Iruka to drag him back to school. Tayuya remarked angrily, you're in really big trouble now. They then began to make their way back. I can't believe you did that, really? I must now spend my day off observing you until you tidy up that mess. As Naruto pouted, Tayuya told him, your lucky dad got mom to calm down and let him decide your punishment. Iruka eventually brought him back to class, where everyone just stared. Iruka became irritated when Naruto said, well, Naruto, what do you have to say for yourself? All right, fine. Just for that everyone line up for a transformation test. With that announcement everyone groaned and complained as they lined up. Naruto, well known to his generation and others as the son of the fourth Hokage, but most of the village see him as the monster that attacked the village. Naruto noticed it all too well and wondered why did most of the village hate him. His sister didn't seem to know why, and their parents along with their friends just never gave a clear answer as to why. After a while Naruto just took it all and started pranking the village, not too long after proclaiming he will surpass his father and be the next Hokage. Kushina would often ask him to let out anything that's bothering him, but he never did. She worries that all this pranking he does is just a way to get Tei village's attention till he can prove them wrong. She hated to wonder how much worse would the village had treated him if neither her or Minato were around. Then again, she wasn't any different when it came to dealing with those problems. Even now she would still be looked at as some kind of demon that gave birth to a bigger monster that could kill them all. She never tells Minato of her problems and rather he focus on their son's problems, but somehow she figured Minato knows but kept silent till she opened up. Shikamaru standing next to him followed by Ino. Really, Naruto? Shikamaru complained, but he complains about almost everything that doesn't involve sleeping through the day. Should you not get us in trouble all the time? Well, it's not like he can help being a rebel, Ino retorted, despite the fact that she had been a Sasuke fangirl until recently because Naruto had actually saved her from some punk kids who were unable to graduate from the academy. She used to think of Naruto as nothing more than a pain, but after witnessing him defeat those punks using some basic taijutsu his mother had taught him, she couldn't help but see him as manly, as Hinata was currently her only rival for Sasuke. Yes, as Ino was thinking, wow, even when he is in a bad mood he looks so Naruto remarked. Like I care. Ino's imagination got the better of her in this instance. Naruto Namikaze is up next. Iruka called out, and Hinata, his childhood friend, watched him and silently cheered for him. Naruto, do your best, she thought as Naruto made the transformation sign. His grades were mediocre, and under his mother's watch, he and Tayuya studied when she told them to cause their mother is the last person to make angry. When Naruto thinks of his mother getting angry, he is reminded of a comic Takaru brought about a warrior whose power increases when he becomes enraged. Her specific words to them, and especially to her enemies, were, you won't like me when I'm mad. However, as one would expect from someone who knows Naruto well enough, he turned into transform. He used that jutsu, which his mother specifically told him not to use again, and Ino was shocked that he did. She wondered if she could get a bod like that when she got older, and Iruka, well, she blushed in embarrassment. Poof. There stood a bombshell of a woman with twin pigtails and D-cup breasts, with only the smoke covering the juicy bits. Buawa. He is knocked unconscious by the nosebleed rocket, and Naruto returns to his previous state of laughter. Ha 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 ha. Sensei Iruka, I got you. My sexy jutsu was that, he spoke with pride until Tayuya, who he had forgotten was observing from outside the window, leapt and punched him in the back of the head. Iruka then yelled. You've failed the graduation exam twice already, Naruto. Cut the dull tricks now. This is the final warning. The truth is that Naruto could have graduated earlier, but the exam he took twice was a concern he brought to the Hokage. Minato ordered that this be Naruto's test each time, as a means of determining whether Naruto was serious about becoming Hokage. Let alone a ninja. After school, everyone left, with the exception of Naruto, who was now required by the Hokage to remove all the graffiti while Tayuya and Iruka watched over him. Dude. This is terrible, Naruto grumbled, Can't you ask Dad for a favor, sis? As Iruka observed them, Kyuubi responded, if you knew cleaning this was gonna suck then you shouldn't have done it, and you know he can't give us special favors cause he's our father. He knew one thing that would lift Naruto's spirits. Hi, Naruto, how about the three of us grab some ramen after you're done? He smiled and said, my treat, Ichiraku ramen, was the one thing the Namikaze siblings loved more than anything else. Iruka had his own problems with Naruto at first, just like everyone else, because his parents were killed. But Minato was able to console him and teach him a valuable lesson that he would never forget. He treated the two of them as though they were his own siblings, but like Minato, he did not give them any special treatment because they were in his class. All right. That's a lot of motivation, Naruto shouted as he accelerated his work. Then, you'd better get done quickly. My name is being called by that miso ramen, Kyuubi shouted as Iruka laughed at them when they were finally done. The three of them headed to Ichiraku ramen, where they discussed why Naruto did what he did while eating. Kyuubi made sure to inform their mother that Iruka was taking care of them. So, Naruto, why did you cover the Hokage faces with graffiti? You know they do, don't you? Iruka questioned him. Of course. They were best of the best and the strongest ninja to have ever lived, and my dad was one of the youngest people to become Hokage, yet even now he's still getting stronger, replied Naruto. As she slurped her ramen, Kyuubi questioned, then why did? Because after tomorrow I'm gonna prove to everyone I'm some screw-up. I'm gonna surpass them all, including Dad. Naruto Namikaze. The next great ninja. A ninja legend. Naruto grinned. Kyuubi couldn't resist grinning at her younger brother. Iruka said, well, you better graduate tomorrow then. By the way, since you're both here, can one of you let me wear your ninja headbands? He inquired. They both asked, why? They both said no, so he said, why not? They just look so cool. I want to at least wear one before tomorrow's test. You know the rules, Naruto, only those who have graduated from the academy can wear a ninja headband. Iruka clarified for him. At that, Naruto pouted. Since he was a little shorter than most of the other children for his age, Kyuubi teased him by saying, look at the way he's pouting. He made that same face when he was little. He shouted, I want another bowl. In an attempt to shift the conversation, the exam was set to start the following day. When Naruto realized he was eating a little slowly at the table, he bolted before she could say goodbye to him. Naruto hurriedly exclaimed, oh crap, I gotta go, Mom. I love you, bye, and left. As she watched him rush to his test, she remarked, good luck. My little fish cake. She hoped that things would be different this time. Naruto arrived just in time and sat down. Iruka began the test after confirming that every student was present and on time. There were two sections. The written portion of the test came first. Naruto does a decent job with this section. The jutsu part followed. The purpose of this was to determine whether the students had at least a moderate level of chakra control and whether they could execute at least one basic jutsu of the faculties. Okay. Now the written exam is over. We got one more test that will help determine if you are truly ready to become ninja. This graduation exam's final test will be the clone jutsu, Iruka stated to his pupils. Again. That's my worst technique. No matter how much I practice it, I can't get it to work. Naruto thought to himself. This exam would be administered by Iruka and Mizuki, his longtime friend and assistant instructor. The students entered and exited one by one. Naruto Namikaze, exclaimed Mizuki. Naruto came into the room and stood in front of them. Iruka told him, whenever you're ready, Naruto. He and Mizuki watched to see if he was able to use the jutsu at last. Naruto told himself as he accumulated the required amount and some extra to make it work for him, I can do this, just focus my chakra. Poof. Clone jutsu. He was now embarrassed because, in spite of the drama, his clone failed again. Iruka said, you failed? Naruto appeared upset, so he hated to tell him that, but it was his responsibility as an instructor to carry out his duties. Naruto had high hopes for that one, so Mizuki said, we could cut him a break this time, Iruka. It was a bit sloppy this time, but you can tell he really put his all into trying to make it happen. Mizuki, all the other students were at least able to produce 3 clones. Naruto could bear it. Make one and look at it, it's pathetic. I'm afraid I can't pass him, and that was the end of it. After leaving the classroom, Naruto sat at swing outside the academy for the remainder of the day. He could see families arriving to pick up their children, and he knew that soon someone would stop by to inquire about his well-being. He didn't want to see anyone right now. After all that bluster, he felt too ashamed. Hinata revealed her headband and discovered her mother and Co waiting for her while they were telling her how proud they were. She continued to search for Naruto until she noticed him sitting by himself on the swing. Attempting to avoid everyone, she then overheard some of the other adults talking about how relieved they were that Naruto had not graduated. Mother, Why does everyone in the village hate Naruto? Replied Hinata. Saya gave her daughter a tight hug and said, Hinata, I wish I could tell you, but there are reasons why I can't right now. She knows her daughter has a thing for her childhood friend. During this embrace, Naruto noticed Mizuki standing next to him and invited him to join him on the rooftops to escape from everything. One day he'll know the truth for himself and it'll be important for you to be there and listen to him. When Hinata turned to at least speak with Naruto, he had already left. Kyuubi had just asked the Hyugas if they had seen Kushina. Saya expressed her regret for not seeing him take off on his own, saying, I'm sorry, Hinata saw him right there on the swing. We should have kept a better eye on him. With a worried expression on her face, Kushina said, No, don't be. Why would he run off like that? As everyone turned to watch her, Hinata said, He probably wasn't to be seen because he didn't pass the clone jutsu again. Naruto and Mizuki were staring at the sunset and discussing the same thing. I know you're upset, Naruto, and it may look Iruka is being hard on you, but he's doing it cause he cares about you. He wants you to become strong to help you reach your dream of surpassing your father, Mizuki said in an attempt to console his pupil as Naruto sniffed. Tears were streaming down his face. Kyuubi tracked sadness and sorrow. I really wanted to pass this time. I wanted to make them proud of me. Sniff. I just can't be like Dad. I'm not smart or fast like him, but I worked really hard. Naruto was unable to stop crying. He used the sleeves of his orange coat to wipe the tears from his face because he hadn't cried in so long that he had nearly forgotten how to stop. Mizuki looked at him, patted his head, and smiled genuinely. Song at the end. Well, if you're still determined, there is one thing you can try, Mizuki responded. Naruto then turned to face Mizuki. It's not common these days, but we do have a special test for students who failed but have great potential in them, sorta like a last chance thing, but it's top secret in the faculty and I think you got what it takes. Naruto, if you're willing I can make the preparations for you to take it later tonight. With a hopeful tone, Naruto asked, Really? You're really serious? Mizuki answered him, Yep, but it's top secret so you can't tell anyone even after you take it. Naruto then consented to accept it. Mizuki had instructed Naruto to wait at the designated location to begin the test and to stay away from home until it was finished. Mizuki paid for Naruto's dinner, so all he needed to do was wait for Mizuki to come back so he could begin his mission-based test. While this was going on, Iruka was with the Namakazes, reflecting on what Minato had said to him about Naruto's exam performance and how Iruka had conveyed his feelings before Minato had to return to his office for a last-minute summons. Iruka, I think you of all people ought to know it's like to be ignored. Naruto has great respect for you because you're one of the only few people who treats him like a person instead of a monster or the son of the Hokage. That's why he's been getting into trouble these last 2 years. He feels he needs to get the village's attention to prove they're wrong about him, even though Kushina, Kyuubi and myself do all we can to show he doesn't need to go that far. So far Hinata was the only one to convince him to keep his pranks to a minimum since I've caught her helping him on a rare occasion. Minato said as he chuckled. On those rare times Hinata got caught assisting Naruto with some of his early pranks on the village. He said, I think you relate to Naruto more than most because like you and Kushina he's trying to prove himself. He wants us to believe in him, that's why I requested for him to take the clone jutsu. To show it won't all be easy, but to see that no matter what happens as long as he doesn't give up he can always make something happen. He departed before Iruka had a chance to question why he would want to put his own son through such a difficult test. He, Kushina, and Kyuubi heard the alarm go off at that moment. As Kushina and Kyuubi hurriedly changed and caught up to Iruka, they noticed that other Chunin and Jonin were kneeling in front of the Hokage, waiting for him to speak. Kushina recognized the white-haired, masked ninja from his early years as Minato's pupil. What's going on, Kakashi? She inquired. Kakashi could tell that this was a difficult order for him to give, so he said, Something big. I don't think you're gonna like what Sensei has to announce. Knowing that Kushina would suffer just as much as he would, Minato turned to face her. Reluctantly, Minato said, Just a while ago the Leaf's secret scroll has been stolen by Naruto Namikaze. Those who knew the boy couldn't believe what Minato had just revealed, and the majority of the ninja present, who already didn't like him, were now furious. Neither Iruka nor Kyuubi could accept what her father had just said, since this type of crime carries a life sentence in prisoner, in Naruto's case, death, given how much people seem to despise him. Kyuubi turned to her mother and could tell she was ready to cry. Kushina had to listen to the outbursts of anger, and it took all of her strength to remain composed. Lord Hokage, I know he's your son, but even you have to admit he is taking this way too far. That scroll contains jutsus that has been taught to our village since its founding by the first Hokage. A Jonin yelled with worry. Since this would be challenging for him and his family, Minato muttered to himself, Forgive me, after saying, Go and find Naruto and bring him back immediately. The shinobi scattered and started looking. Kyuubi gathered her team to conduct a search. Iruka stopped to check on Kushina, who was perched on a roof. He looked at Lady Kushina, who was crying, and said, "It'll be all right, Lady Kushina." Iruka stated that he had faith and trust in Naruto because he was brought up by a good father, a loving sister, and most importantly, a mother who genuinely loved her son. Naruto is a good kid. He would never do something like this. They both began to run as they considered potential locations for Naruto. "We just gotta look to where Naruto would go. He'd have to be somewhere we wouldn't think to look." Mizuki, meanwhile, knew exactly where to go in a different area of the village. He grinned menacingly and thought, "This is perfect. With this, no one would care if I were to kill him now. Then I can take the scroll for myself." Before he was discovered to have passed his test, Naruto was already reading the scroll to see if he could at least master one. "Let's see him. The Shadow Clone Jutsu Ga. Not again. This is my worst technique, but I guess I don't have a choice since I only got so little time for this test." Naruto was thinking to himself. After nearly an hour, Naruto collapsed from exhaustion, but he still exuded confidence and pride. After taking a moment to catch his breath, he turned around and noticed two people. Iruka laughed and exclaimed, Pant, we finally found you, Naruto." He knew Naruto well enough to hide in unexpected places. Kushina rushed over to her infant and gave him a long-awaited hug and kiss. Trying not to cry, she exclaimed, "Oh, my little fishcake. I was worried sick about you." They appeared perplexed by Naruto's statement. "Sorry mom, but hey, listen. And you too, Iruka-sensei. Now that you two found me, this means I get to take the exam again, right?" I'm curious as to why he doesn't realize that stealing the scroll got him into serious trouble. Whoa, slow down there. What test? What are you talking about?" Iruka responded. As Naruto saw the shocked expressions on their faces, he began to worry. "The secret test the academy has. Mizuki-sensei told me all about it in this secret spot so you guys can see." Kushina thought. "Impossible," Iruka thought. "Mizuki told him this? But why?" They are both perplexed as to why a bright chunin like him would act in this manner. Iruka shoved the mother and child away at that moment. Sensing an attack, he threw a number of kunais and shurikens, and before Kushina had time to make a hand signal while holding Naruto, she shielded him with her body. Although neither of them died from their wounds, they were extremely painful. "Mom! Iruka-sensei!" Naruto exclaimed, clutching the scroll. In dismay, Mizuki was perched atop a tree when they all looked up. To his friend, Iruka remarked, "So, that's how it is. I should have known, Mizuki. I guess it was a good thing I came a little extra prepared especially for you." Mizuki slammed his hands together and said, "I gotta admit I'm surprised you two knew to look here." Chakra seal. When Kushina realized that this jutsu was a special chakra seal jutsu for Jinchurikis, she cried out in agony. "Ah! This seal." Both her own chakra and the half of the Nine Tails chakra she already possessed were sealed by this. By directing the chakra toward her pain receptors, this seal also produces physical discomfort. "Mom!" Naruto cried out in concern. It was the first time he had witnessed his mother in such agony. She was among the strongest kunoichi to date, second only to his father, specifically one of the top 4 at the moment. HMMPH, so even one of the Leaf's Lady Devas can be vulnerable when you exploit their weakness. Mizuki replied with arrogance. She questioned, in spite of the pain, "Where did you learn this, just Sue?" He answered, "That's my little secret, I'm afraid." A bewildered Naruto exclaimed, "Mizuki-sensei, what is this? What the hell is going on here?" Naruto. "Mizuki used you. He wants that scroll to increase his own power. Don't give it to him." Iruka screamed. "Don't listen to him, Naruto. Just give me the scroll and you'll get to be a full-fledged ninja like I said." Mizuki said. He added in his mind, "A rouge ninja that is." Iruka shouted, "Mizuki, stop lying to him." "Oh, I'll tell you who's lying," Mizuki retorted, drawing Naruto's attention. Kushina and Iruka were afraid of what he was going to say. Since resorbing half of the Nine Tails chakra caused it to be removed as if it were overloaded with the sudden absorption of so much chakra into her body along with her own strong chakra, Kushina muttered under her breath, regretting not bringing Minato's kunai. "No, don't listen to him. They've been lying to you your whole life, Naruto. Even your own parents," said Mizuki. "Under your daddy's orders we were forced to keep it a secret from you." Iruka shouted, "No, Mizuki. It's forbidden." "What secret? What secret does everyone know that I don't?" asked Naruto. "The nine-tailed fox that attacked our village 12 years ago was never slain by the third Hokage. It was instead sealed away. Half of its chakra into your mother while the beast and the other half of its chakra in you. In other words, you are the nine-tailed fox," he exclaimed, enjoying Naruto's shocked expression as if he had just been struck. Didn't you think it was strange that whole village would always talk about your mother behind her back and look at you like you were some kind of plague? As her tears began to fall again, Kushina uttered, "And Naruto." This was the kind of truth she didn't want her son to know. Mizuki took hold of his enormous shuriken and exclaimed, "No worries, Lady Kushina, I'll put him out of his misery." Before Mizuki set out to kill Naruto, Iruka reflected on what Minato had said during this exchange. The giant shuriken he threw said, "Say goodbye." Kushina screamed in terror, "Naruto," as she was immobilized by the pain. Naruto awoke with a start, expecting to be killed, but he was still alive and saw Iruka on top of him, who had taken the blow. "Naruto, get down," he exclaimed. "Why?" he inquired, cue melancholy and sorrow once more. "Since we are similar, I used to be like you after my parents were killed in the attack. Nobody seemed to care, so I decided to become the class clown to attract attention, but my grades suffered and I didn't advance. I reasoned that I should follow the others' lead and exact revenge on my parents, but then..." Rewind. When Iruka saw a 2-year-old Naruto by himself in his backyard, he hesitated because, from every angle, he appeared to be a helpless child. However, after he saw him fall and hurt himself, he began to cry, so he went to help him stop. "Fishcake, are you alright?" As Kushina ran to retrieve her infant, Iruka heard her. Iruka handed her Naruto and explained, "He just fell. It looks like he just hurt his knee a little." "Oh, I see, thank you." Before she knew it, he was gone. Iruka had gone to the memorial stone after realizing he couldn't do it despite everyone's justifications. Naruto was only a helpless child in all of this. At that moment, he turned around and the fourth Hokage appeared. "I suppose you came to that realization on your own. Being a good ninja." Iruka starts with that. "I understand why you try to be the class clown. Even though your grades are below average, you're not scared to cry for your parents, unlike most people," he remarked. "No, I'm not. My tears are a result of my pride in my parents. For this village, they gave their lives as heroes. For this reason, I don't think it's appropriate to hold a young child accountable for something over which he had no control. If I were to murder an innocent child in that way, my parents would never forgive me," Iruka shouted, fully aware that the Hokage already knew what he was going to do before he even reached the memorial stone. "Iruka, not many people are able to overcome that kind of hatred. It's something we ninja battle every day, but we still rely on one another here because the will of fire is inside each of us," Minato said, passing him. "Fire's will? We have been taught this philosophy since the first Hokage. Like a family, we feel compelled to defend others and support one another in the face of any threat, no matter how minor. We are aided in these times by the will of fire." As Iruka looked at his Hokage, who had such faith in people, Minato said, "I have faith in our village that despite how they see my wife and son, they will come to see them as heroes." To his surprise, Minato gave him a hug, saying, "I know these last 2 years have been hard, Iruka, but you're not alone. You'd be shocked to learn that one person's belief in you can make a difference, even if it's just one person." Iruka started crying when she heard those words. "Don't be afraid to let others into your life. We are all family in this village." The flashback ends. "I apologize. I should have made an effort to be there more because I noticed that, despite having people with you, you were attempting to attract the village's attention. Naruto, you don't have to do that. Your current circle of friends and family believe in you. And I do too." Naruto saw his tears and his mother, but the fact that they had kept this secret from him was still too much for him, so he fled into the woods with the scroll. "So please don't hurt yourself anymore like this." "Naruto. Naruto." Iruka and Kushina screamed, but Kushina passed out from the agony of the last yell, and Mizuki passed them. "I believe it's time to take care of him." Mizuki ran off after Naruto, saying, "I'll come back and deal with you two later." Iruka turned to face Kushina, who was unconscious but could still think about Naruto at that moment. He then removed the shuriken from his back and attempted to stand again. "No, I'll not allow it," Iruka told himself. "I swear I'll protect him with my life." Meanwhile, Minato was in a meeting with Homura, Kaharu, and Danzo, who were pressuring him to take appropriate action for Naruto stealing the scroll. They thought it would be best to put him en route, but after a protracted and absurd argument, he was able to postpone passing judgment until they had resolved the issue beforehand. At that moment, he noticed Kyuubi and her squad. "Dad. Kyuubi, what is it? It's Mom, and she's not here." She hasn't responded or done anything. He went into a chamber to access a crystal orb that allowed him to see within the village all the way to about 15 miles out in the forest area because that's all Minato can handle with it. When he heard his daughter say, "I'm getting worried," he discovered Kushina unconscious and gave Kyuubi the order to send a medic team there while he continued to search for Naruto from the crystal ball. Once back in the forest, Naruto was hopping from branch to branch until Iruka caught up. "Naruto. Mizuki is pursuing you. Quickly hand me the scroll." he asked, but unexpectedly Naruto tackled him with all his might and both fell to the ground. Naruto got some distance and sat up against a tree. "Grr, damn it. How the hell did you know I wasn't Iruka, Naruto?" "Iruka turned out to be Mizuki." Poof. Naruto used a log to pretend it was the scroll, but it was actually Iruka. "Hey, simple, because I'm Iruka Amino." "In any case, why are you defending the monster that murdered your parents?" Unbeknownst to them, Naruto was actually hiding behind a tree and listening when Mizuki asked, "Admit it, you know he's a monster, and now that he knows he's going to use the scroll to attack the village for his revenge. Monsters simply act in this way." "You're correct," Iruka replied. "You're right, that's what a monster would do." Naruto felt deceived and squeezed the scroll. "So, it's accurate. Dad, Mom, Sis, Hinata, and even Iruka-sensei believe that I am." He was abruptly drawn to the statement, but that's not who Naruto is. Sure, he may be a bit of a screw-up and likes to prank people, but what kid his age wouldn't like to do that stuff? Even though he isn't as brilliant as his father, that's what makes him unique. He isn't attempting to emulate his father or even take advantage of the fact that he is our Hokage. He's attempting to establish himself. He puts a lot of effort into his training and works harder than anyone I know. He is the son of Kushina Namikaze and Minato, and he is not a monster. He is the Hidden Leaf's Naruto Namikaze. Cue the Naruto fight song from episode 1. Naruto was crying after hearing this because he was beginning to realize that he didn't need everyone's approval, only that of those who genuinely cared about him mattered. "I was going to kill you last, but that Iruka really irritated me. For me, say hello to your parents." With his enormous kunai spinning on his finger, Mizuki lunged and screamed. "I guess this is it for me?" Iruka asked in his thoughts as he closed his eyes waiting for death, since he had nothing left in him till a whoosh and bam. He saw Naruto come out from behind and punched Mizuki and knocked him back. "Naruto, I will kill you if you ever come into contact with my friends, family, or sensei," Naruto said, glaring at Mizuki like a fox. "You believe you can defeat me? Are you serious? I can kill you with a single blow?" Mizuki stood up and shouted. "Fool, take your best shot." As everyone watched, Naruto made the hand signals that everyone seemed to recognize. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Just then, Tayuya's squad and Tsunade were carrying Kushina after taking off the seal Mizuki had put on her, and now they were tending to Iruka. Poof. There were literally 1,000 Narutos. Tayuya remarked, "I don't believe he pulled it off. Furthermore, they are not illusion clones, they're real clones." Iruka told Tayuya. "He's mastered an extremely advanced jutsu." Kushina also appeared in awe, and Mizuki was now in a panic. "Get moving. Why wait?" All of the Narutos shouted. "Well, we'll come to you if you don't come." They shouted as Mizuki's cries were heard over the sounds of pummeling, punching, and kicking. All of the ninjas were gathered back in the village, and Kakashi was reading his book as if he knew something when Minato emerged. As everyone but Kakashi appeared perplexed, Minato grinned and said, "It's all over now. Don't worry, Naruto will be back soon." Back in the forest, with the sun just rising, Naruto was summoned by Iruka. After tying up Mizuki, he noticed that everyone was talking about something, but he ignored it. "This case is over." "All right, now shut your eyes," Iruka said, "don't peek." Naruto nodded. "All right, may I open them now?" did he ask. "Yes, fishcake, now you can." Naruto opened his eyes and felt Iruka's forehead, realizing that he was missing his headband. "Naruto Namikaze. Best wishes." As he and the others cheered him on, Iruka grinned and said, "You graduate from the academy and are now a genin of the Hidden Leaf." Kushina leapt to her son and gave him her happiest hug to date. "Fishcake, congratulations. You have our utmost admiration," she said, stroking his hair. "And to rejoice tonight, we're all going out to eat ramen." As he allowed Tsunade to tend to his wounds, Iruka said with pride. "Sensei Iruka." Naruto was overjoyed that he was all right and could graduate, and he leapt for an embrace. With a dramatic expression in her eyes, Kushina remarked, "Well, I guess it, my two little babies are ninja now." "Mom, we are no longer infants," the siblings screamed at their mom. "You are, indeed. My babies are you." Two of them attempted to escape, but it would take some time. Kushina held them both and sobbed uncontrollably. "He claims he aspires to outperform his dad. At first, I thought it was crazy, but now I'm beginning to believe he can pull it off." However, Naruto, things only get more difficult from here. As he observed the Namikaze siblings attempting to escape their mother, Iruka thought to himself, "But I can tell him that later after ramen." Almost 3 days have passed since the Mizuki case. Naruto was dropped of all charges, with witness stating Mizuki had just used Naruto. Minato decided to allow Iruka's decision of letting his graduate under special circumstances since it wasn't very common for a student to have mastered the shadow clone jutsu, especially one as young as Naruto. On the following morning after returning home, Kushina thought it best to fill in Yuya on Naruto's secret since it wasn't fair to keep her out of the loop now that Naruto was aware of what he is. Kushina explained to both of them that her and Naruto are known as Jinchuriki, human hosts for the tailed beast's powers. She also made it clear for Naruto to be careful since any sense of extreme emotion could allow the fox to take control of him. Yuya now understood why her brother was so hated. Naruto was gonna tell her not to worry about it, but to his surprise she hugged him. She felt so bad that she didn't know and wished she could have more for him as his sister. Despite his tendencies for getting into trouble, she loved her brother very much. She thought back to when she was 9 years old. She was just waiting for her mother since they were going to go get some groceries together that afternoon. Rewind. She was dressed in a black beanie, blue pants, and a white sleeveless shirt. She had homework and had recently been the target of bullying, but she decided to keep quiet about it so as not to upset her family. Look who it is. Hey, if it's not Monster Redhead. Yuya turned to see that it was her bully group. Go away from me, Yuya said as she was about to get away. She tried to take the high road in ignoring them and escaping them with her ninja training, but they got a jump on her by grabbing her and then yanking her down. Where do you anticipate traveling? Are you going to ask your parents to help you out? I've heard that you're not even their biological child. She started crying as the taunts continued. Hey! A small boy yelled. They all turned to see it was a 6-year-old Naruto who just happened to be passing by with Hinata after playing in the park. Leave my sister alone, he called out to them. Hey, that kid is someone I know. The village is constantly discussing him. Oh yeah, he's also the one who got beat by those kids in that Hyuga kids class. That insult was too much for them, and before Yuya could move, Naruto was charging. If that's him in red as his sister guessed, that means the rumors about their mom being some kind of harlot was true. However, he stumbled over a rock and unintentionally bumped his head against the child's crotch. You little asshole. She believed in ignoring jerks like them, but when it came to her family, the gloves came off and she used a move her mother taught her. She charged at full speed, catching the kid beating up Naruto off guard as she extended the curved right arm and got his throat. One of the bullies yelled as he grabbed Naruto, and the other got Hinata before she could try to help him. Seeing her little brother get kicked in the stomach was the last straw. Lariat in the Uzumaki style. She yelled. She didn't kill him, but she knocked the wind out of that kid and he passed out, so the one holding Hinata looked scared and let go and ran away. Hinata ran to Naruto and Yuya, who were trying to contain his tears. Naruto felt bad that he couldn't save his sister, and he didn't look like a crybaby in front of Naruto. Yuya gave him a hug, thanked him for standing up for her, and assured him that no one would think less of him if he sobbed until Kushina arrived. The flashback ends. We are now in the present day in the morning. Yuya was prepping her gear. I'll let this be an Eki moment. Yuya got out of her pajamas and in the shower as she enjoyed the feeling of hot water going down her skin. After she got out and dried off, she took a look in the mirror at her figure. She wasn't embarrassed or was too concerned, but even though she had a tendency of being tomboyish, she was still a girl and wondered if she was by at least pretty. She had a figure that could have made people think she was Kushina when she was younger, with her red hair, C-cup-sized breasts and brown eyes that would at times remind her of her biological mother. She sometimes wished her eyes were more Kushina so it wouldn't remind her of the past before. If Kushina hadn't been there and took her in and loved her like she was real daughter. Well, she hated to think where she might have ended up at. She put the towel away in the laundry basket and started putting on her clothes. She got a pair of blue panties on and made the necessary adjustments. After pulling them up, then she got the black mesh shirt with long sleeves. Then put on white shirt with the Uzumaki symbol on the back, then got black shorts, got her favorite blue beanie that the leaf played on it. It acted as her other headband if her regular headband got damaged. Once she got dressed, put on her ninja pouch on her waist, her blue fighting gloves where it had finger sleeves, and got to her black ninja tabi at the door. Her father's and Naruto's were gone. Mom, I'm on my way to my mission. She called out as her mother emerged from the laundry room to say goodbye. She was a little anxious because this would be her first solo mission, and Yuya had worked hard to demonstrate that she was prepared for it. Minato, as Hokage, knew she deserved this, but he was concerned that it might come too soon, much like Kushina is feeling as a parent right now. Kushina stepped forward and gave her daughter a back hug, expressing her love for Yuya despite not being her biological mother. Be cautious when you're out there and keep in mind that if it gets. She recalled her lessons well enough to say, too dangerous, don't be afraid to go for a tactical retreat to reassess the situation. One of the first things they taught her was that being a great ninja required more than just displaying strength. you also had to demonstrate wisdom. Remember that the most crucial mission at all times. In an attempt to ease her anxiety, Kyuubi turned around and gave her mother a hug before concluding, "Come back home alive." "I'll come back, I promise," said as she let go to head out. Her mission would take a little over 3 weeks. Her mission was to go to the land of birds and track a rogue ninja who stole a gold statue from the feudal lord, which is easily worth 1,000,000 ryo. The travel, even at her fastest, would take about 9 days. Then, however many days it took her to find the Rouge Nin and the statue. "I love you, Mom." Knowing that Naruto would be at this stage of his ninja career, just like Kyuubi, Kushina said, "I love you too, sweetheart." Sometimes being a ninja was difficult, even for someone as experienced as Kushina. Kyuubi left for her mission, and Kushina trusted her daughter in another area of the village. Naruto and Hinata had their photos taken for their ninja profiles to give to the Hokage. Hinata, on the other hand, had her headband around her neck and a black, thin jacket with the Hyuga symbol on the left chest. Naruto believed this would help showcase her charms, which made her blush at the remark. "Hey kid, are you certain of this?" Looking at Naruto, the cameraman asked. Hinata agreed with the cameraman, saying, Naruto, maybe you should reconsider this." "Oh, Hinata, hurry up, it's okay here, there are no concerns, this will work just fine." As Naruto posed, he said, "Just take the picture, old man." "All right if you say so." The cameraman grudgingly snapped the photo, and they then sent their images to Minato for approval. Hinata's was good, but Naruto's. He looked so ridiculous with all that white makeup and red lining on his face and hands as he posed like Jiraiya, and Tsunade and Shizune, who were there to help him go through the reviews of the new genin, looked at his picture and began to laugh. "I can't accept this, Naruto." "Get moving, Dad, are you serious?" he shouted while attempting to ignore his godmother's and aunt's laughter. "Dude, your picture's main goal is to demonstrate to potential clients that you can meet their needs," he told his son. "This one here makes you look like a clown." Naruto could hear both his father and the Hokage speaking to him at the same time. "Oh, yes. Please, am I not to?" Naruto used his sexy jutsu in conjunction with the transformation jutsu to transform into Kushina, who was wearing a very seductive red two-piece swimsuit with cleavage that was very noticeable. Minato experienced a nosebleed attack. Naruto made his hand signals and demonstrated his special transformation to change his mind. Ga. When Tsunade threw her clipboard at Naruto and reversed the transformation, he jumped out of his chair. "OWWW. Naruto informed her, "Godmama Tsunade, that was mean." "I'd rather not hear it," Tsunade told her godson sternly. "I thought your mother and I both told you not to use that ridiculous jutsu of yours." As Minato stood back up, Naruto grudgingly said, "Sorry." Tsunade turned to Minato, looking disappointed that he had even fallen for that jutsu. "Minato, I swear." Minato laughed and scratched the back of his head before gathering himself. "How you even got to be Hokage is beyond me sometimes," Tsunade said to him. "You're going to take the photo again, anyway. Additionally, you helped Hinata out of kindness." "Hello, Hinata." Minato knew she was just outside in the hallway, so he called her and said, "Come in for a moment." "Why don't you help Naruto this time with his picture?" he asked. "Yeah." After Hinata bowed to him respectfully and said, "Lord Hokage," he realized Naruto was missing something crucial. "Naruto, what happened to your headband?" "I went to my room." "Why?" did he ask. "As a full-fledged ninja, you are aware of what you should wear, right?" "Yeah, but I don't start my duties till tomorrow and I didn't want to get it all dirty and messed up," he responded. "That's not." Minato thought she saw someone standing outside the door, but it was open. "Hokage, the fourth lord. My purpose is to kill you." Everyone had a heart-stopping moment when a young boy, about Hinata's younger sister's age, ran up to the Minato holding a kunai until she tripped over his scarf. "Who is the child?" Naruto spoke to Hinata in a whisper. She returned the whisper, "I'm not sure. This must be the 7th time he's attempted to kill me in this month," Minato thought to himself. "Respected grandson." When he noticed the boy on the ground, a man wearing sunglasses yelled, "Are you okay?" The boy stood up. "Hey, I was tripped by you." The boy gestured to Naruto. "How am I supposed to be here, you brat?" Naruto shouted. "Don't tell lies. Are you aware of my identity?" the boy shouted. "You spoiled brat, like I care. You need to learn some manners from someone." As Hinata attempted to calm him down, Naruto yelled as he was about to bop him on the head. "Konohamaru Sarutobi is his name." When Hinata and Naruto looked shocked at that statement, Minato calmly explained, "He's the grandson of the 3rd Hokage Naruto." For some reason, Minato became irritated when he saw Naruto stop. "I was aware of it. You are like everyone else. You don't have the strength to strike me because my grandfather was the one who rescued the village from the 9-tailed fox." Konohamaru shouted. If he was a grandmother, it doesn't matter to me. You need to learn some manners from someone. In a fit of rage, Naruto struck Konohamaru in the head, shocking him and making him think. The Jonin had a panic attack as he fell to the ground, saying, "This guy, he's different." Respected grandson. The man yelled. Minato said, "Definitely his mother's child." Tsunade said, "Yep, how could you just allow this to occur, Lord Hokage?" The man shouted. Minato said, "Calm yourself, Ebisu." And you? Ebisu was about to scream at Naruto when she noticed the three children had vanished. Where have they disappeared to? And the honorable grandson is where? Ebisu went into a panic. After returning his focus to the paperwork and placing Naruto's file on top of 7 other new genin who shared Naruto's stupid idea for his picture, Minato replied, "I think he's gone off somewhere to follow Naruto." "But, honorable grandson, he might, sir." Fearing the worst, Ebisu hurried out to find Konohamaru. "Everything will be alright." Konohamaru wouldn't learn anything negative from Naruto, would he? Tsunade and Shizune were asked by Minato what they thought. As she attempted to sneak a sip of her sake into what appeared to be a water bottle, Tsunade remarked, "No, it should be fine." Auntie, Lady Tsunade, was called out by both Minato and Shizune, who were well aware of her bad habits. She grudgingly gave him his hand when Minato extended it. Tsunade said, "Damn." An hour later, Naruto took another photo of himself without makeup and gave it to his father. Ko picked up Hinata and told her that her father needed to talk to her, so Naruto was now walking alone through the streets. "Are you wondering what I ought to do?" Naruto asked himself while Konohamaru was amateurishly following him. Naruto easily picked up on it from the obvious signs. Needless to say, he was getting annoyed till he bumped into Takaru. "Ow, Takaru? Is that armor still hiding you?" Ignoring the question, Takaru said, "Hello Naruto, so what's?" Naruto replied, fully aware of Konohamaru. "Yeah, I know." He turned to see a rock that resembled a cube. "Oh come on. A cube rock does not exist." And Konohamaru emerged from that phony rock. "Ha! I knew that following you was a wise decision, as one might expect from the son of the 4th Hokage," he declared with pride. "I will not participate in this," Takaru said. "I have some work to do in the shop," before leaving for his job at home. "Who was that?" Konohamaru inquired. "Takaru. He is my sister's teammate, somewhat of a genius, and enjoys working on strange and interesting projects at home. He actually made that armor he's wearing," Naruto said, summarizing his limited knowledge of Takaru. Even among his own team, he was a mystery with many secrets, and the village occasionally believed that he was a machine due to the appearance of some of his armor. "What makes him don the armor? Is he on some sort of mission?" "I'm not sure. He's always had some sort of armor on since we first met. He wore them even as a child," Naruto retorted. "Anyway, putting that aside, why are you following me? It's pretty weird and he never explains why." "I observed how you used your jutsu to deal with the Hokage. I want to learn it from you." Konohamaru made a demand. No," was Naruto's response. "You must teach me that jutsu, please. I'll call you boss and be your disciple," Konohamaru answered. "Supervisor?" Naruto began to reconsider. "Call me that again? Hey boss." Naruto thought to himself, "Wow, that feels so cool. Okay, I will begin teaching you the jutsu immediately. But it won't be simple. You must be committed," Naruto said. "Committed? All right, boss," Konohamaru concurred. "All right." Naruto led him to the bookstore and said, "The first thing to do is getting you some reference." They slipped past the clerk and entered the adult section, pulling out the most recent issue of Shinobi Monthly. While both of them were drooling with twisted smiles, however, they were caught by the clerk and expelled from his store after Naruto took a few blows from his broom. "Oh, Sanowski," a young girl with brown hair in a ponytail and a purple kimono asked, "do you really think I'm pretty?" "Obviously, I don't think I've seen such beautiful wavy hair," Sanowski said, trying to talk her into going on a date until he noticed the boys being ejected from the bookstore. Looks like an emergency came up," he said. "Why don't I come get you at 7 o'clock? Gazing into the young girl's eyes, Sanowski uttered those words. As he took off, she said in a loving tone, "Yes." "Wow, that was awful in a variety of ways," Naruto remarked. "Now what?" Konohamaru inquired. Sanowski startled the boys by appearing out of nowhere and said, "How about we get to the part where you guys fill me in on what hell you're doing? What brings you here?" "You can forget it, buddy, if you're pursuing my sister once more," Naruto answered. "Calm down. In any case, I have a date tonight," Sanowski shot back. "But really, what are you two doing?" Sigh. "Well," Naruto gave a detailed explanation. "I understand." According to Sanowski, You're teaching the child your special jutsu, but I don't think he's going to learn it from pictures or magazines. Why not? Both of them inquired. Cause unlike you Naruto, he doesn't have a sister or mom a guy would bust a nut to have. Observe it, Naruto uttered a menacing statement. I apologize for going off topic in any case, Sanosuke informed Naruto, you must take him to that place. You can't mean, yes Naruto that, wait, what are you two discussing? Konohamaru inquired. Every man aspires to and even risks his life for the Holy Land as they approached the village bathhouse and stared at the women's entrance, Sanosuke responded. Actually some of them almost died to get there. Here we are the place all boys take the first step to becoming men. I kind of overlooked this step Naruto said, I thought it might be a little too extreme for a kid his age. I'll do it if it will enable me to master the sexy jutsu, Konohamaru shouted. All right, then, let's explore, Sanosuke commanded as the three of them underwent a straightforward metamorphosis, with Sanosuke becoming the girl he had met, Naruto becoming a younger Naruto, and Konohamaru. Well, I don't think we could call it a successful transformation, but they went in anyhow. Everything was quiet and going smoothly until one person recognized Naruto. NN Naruto. Naruto recognized that voice and said, oh, crap, hey Hinata. How's it hanging? Naruto asked, gazing at her nude body, which was starting to develop a little too quickly for her. Ha 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 ha. She screamed, causing all the women to panic. The boys fled as Sanosuke and Naruto received the worst beatings of their lives after being found, and they entered the forest area while Konohamaru examined their bruises and sporadic stitches. Why did we receive the only beatings? Naruto grumbled. Konohamaru apologized to them, saying, I'm sorry. Hey, don't worry, Sanosuke will assist me in observing you, and you're finally prepared to learn the sexy jutsu, Naruto told him. Are you prepared? Yes. Konohamaru shouted. Then, kiddo, change and show us your stuff, Sanosuke shouted. Change. Poof. How are things going? No way. Sanosuke screamed at what he thought was a horror program. It must be more curvy. Naruto shouted, curvier, alright, boss, change, poof, now? What in the world is that meant to be? Those are way too big, and her curves are in the wrong places, Sanosuke shouted. You got it, change, poof, now? For a considerable amount of time, this session was repeated while Ebisu looked for his pupil. Where might they have disappeared to? I will personally hold the honorable grandson and his mother accountable if that little runt has tainted him in any way. Being an elite jonin, I will not allow that to occur. After adjusting his sunglasses, Ebisu hurried off to search the forest area. He returned with the boys, who appeared to be taking a break, and they were all sipping cold tea that Sanosuke had brought from the market in bottles. So, why are you so obsessed with killing my father? As they listened to his tale, Naruto inquired. People have always treated me differently throughout my life, and according to my uncle Asuma, my mother wanted to name Konohamaru because grandpa was the one who saved the village. However, everyone saw the grandson of the third Hokage. That's why I can finally get people to notice me if I defeat the Hokage. Sanosuke and Naruto listened, but their expressions suggested they were thinking in different ways. While Konohamaru appeared shocked, Sanosuke remarked icily, well, if you ask me, you're wasting your time with that. He is correct. Even without his speed, my dad has demonstrated his strength in numerous battles during the most recent Great Shinobi War, making him the fastest man alive. You would lose before the fight even began if you fought him at his best right now. Furthermore, Naruto informed him, it won't be easy, but there are no shortcuts in life. I am the one who is going to defeat him and succeed him as Hokage. Konohamaru was about to scream at them, but then that's the reality, kid. Honorable grandson, there you are. I've been searching everywhere for you, Ebisu said as they all looked up to see him come on. Now Ebisu walked over to him and said, it's time for you to continue your training. Thanks, but no, I've been working out a lot today to defeat the Hokage, Konohamaru shouted. Honorable grandson, don't be foolish. My training is the only way to defeat the Hokage, and you can get there much faster with me than with these hooligans, Ebisu retorted. Yes. Change. Poof. Konohamaru turned into a beautiful sexy woman with long wavy brown hair and the smoke cover her double D breasts and womanhood. Hi, how do you feel about my jutsu? Bell SFX, please. Oh my god. To put it mildly, Ebisu was stunned, but he remained motionless as he went white. Poof. Konohamaru changed back. Hey, what gives? He is still upright. What kind of method is that? Such antics will not fool me. I'm way above it. As Sanosuke applauded the outcome of Konohamaru's training, Ebisu shouted, come along honorable grandson, I think it's time I got you back on the proper path. Ebisu then grabbed Konohamaru, who was clinging to a tree, and pulled. I'm not interested in going. Did I not tell you? Kid, there are no shortcuts. As he approached them to challenge Ebisu, Naruto told Konohamaru, not everything is going to go your way because you wanted to. The fight song then began. You believe you can defeat me? Even though you are the fourth son, you are merely a genin and I am an elite jonin. I am not some upstart like Mizuki, Ebisu declared haughtily, confident in his ability to defeat Naruto and ready for combat. All right, then I'll serve as the referee for this match since you agreed until I decide one of us is no longer able to fight. This is just a battle, gentlemen. No killing and no hitting below the belt today. All set. Sanowski raised his arm up as the two contenders prepared their hand signs. Go. Jutsu Shadow Clone. Poof. There were roughly 10 Narutos this time, and Minato was observing everything via the crystal ball. As his son entered his second battle, Minato remarked, I wonder if Naruto is even aware at how outmatched he is at the moment. Shadow Clone's a jutsu on par with Jonin. As Naruto made their second hand sign, Ebisu informed him, it's impressive, but it won't be enough. Transform. Poof. Change the fight song to the sexiness song as 4 of the Narutos turned in Narukos and the other 6 transformed into sexy jutsu versions of Kushina, Tayuya, Mikoto, Saya, Shizune, and Tsunade. They all glomped Ebisu and said various things to entice him while he felt their nude bodies all over him until 3, 2, 1, and blast off. Ebisu had a rocket nosebleed, as did Sanowski and Minato because he was watching through the crystal ball. He combined his foolish jutsu with his shadow clones with Ebisu and Sanowski unconscious. It was clear that the fight was over. He might actually even beat me with it someday. Minato humiliated himself. End of sexiness song. Oh no. Even with that, I couldn't defeat him, Konohamaru grumbled. So, what did you anticipate? As Konohamaru stared at him, Naruto said, like I said, there aren't any shortcuts in life. Even if there were, you gotta wait your turn in line because the next Hokage is gonna be kid. Naruto teased him by sticking out his tongue. Oh yeah, grr? Well, you simply wait. I will surpass you and become the next Hokage. My boss is no longer you. As of right now, we are competitors, Konohamaru informed Naruto. As he walked away and headed home, Naruto said, well, good luck to ya then Konohamaru. Konohamaru grinned inwardly, thanking Naruto for teaching him the proper way of thinking, and Minato, who had recovered his composure, saw this and thought. Minato grinned and remarked, now he's on the right path to become a true ninja. However, Naruto's moment of composure ended when he got home and Minato told Kushina about Naruto's use of the sexy jutsu. Naruto. You know you're in a lot of trouble. In the meantime, back in the forest, Sanowski and Ebisu finally woke up after Kushina's shout, which was so loud that it shook the village a little, told Naruto to work out with his mother until 11 p.m. Hey, where are all of you? Oh my god, what time is it? My date. Sanowski screamed, running as if his life depended on it. Respected grandson. Where are you? Ebisu called out as he recalled how he lost Till, Ga. He passed out for the remainder of the night after giving himself another nosebleed. As the sun rises in the Leaf Village, we look into the mornings of 2 young people who are about to start their careers as ninja. They both come from clans with a long history and have great and frightening powers. We start by looking at the clan that serves as the Will of Fire's fan, and we see a young boy with raven hair named Sasuke Uchiha. He puts on his headband, changes into his typical outfit of a dark blue shirt with the Uchiha symbol on the back, and looks at a photo of his family from when his brother was still considered his brother. Sasuke. He heard his mother calling, so he went to her. When he reached the kitchen, a 3-year-old girl leapt at him, hugged his legs, and looked up at him. She was dressed in a long, dark blue dress, had dark raven hair that was thick and long for a girl her age, with some of it barotted on the back and the rest combed properly, had onyx eyes, and had light tan skin like her mother. Hey Sasuke. Sasuke. Come on, Pee-wee. This young child was still having trouble pronouncing his name correctly. Mew, calm down. A woman picked up her daughter and sat her down at the table, saying, Sasuke needs to eat and then leave soon. Sasuke looked up and saw her. Sasuke addressed the woman, who turned out to be Hana, Tsume's daughter, saying, didn't realize you were visiting. Well, since Mom is going on a mission today and Kiba will be getting to know his new team, I couldn't leave Mew alone. I figured spending time here with Mikoto would be okay. Hana explained. Itachi and Hana had grown close over the years till the incident 3 years ago where the village had heard the news of the most shocking massacre since the Nine Tails attack. Itachi Uchiha, one of the best young shinobi and a most likely candidate to succeed Minato as Hokage, had attacked and slain nearly his entire clan minus Mikoto and Sasuke. Makoto had gone to look for Sasuke before the slaughter took place. Sasuke could never forget it, his father and nearly all his kinsmen dead, and his mother was almost killed for protecting him with all her heart. He had sworn vengeance for the betrayal. Makoto knows this, and it saddened her that her son would attempt to walk a dangerous path. She almost was tempted herself till the news came from Sume that Hana was pregnant with Miu. Then she realized and saw how blind her clan was before, including her husband. She decided that if it came down to it, she would deal with Itachi for Sasuke's sake as well as for her granddaughter. Miu had made her and Sasuke lighten up since not everything was lost. They still had friends supporting them. Sasuke would never admit it to anyone, but Naruto was probably his only real friend despite their constant arguments and Naruto failed attempts at trying to beat him. Naruto declared him his rival and Sasuke didn't mind it so much till he heard about his recent 2 fights, rumors that he beat Mizuki and Ebisu. Even though it was just Ebisu rambling late at night at how he lost to a mere genin. Sasuke always had a smile for his niece but preferred her to call him big brother since he felt too young to be called uncle. Hana was saddened to hear about Itachi's betrayal and made love to him the night of the slaughter, an hour before it happened. She wasn't sure, she was barely gonna turn 18 in the following month, but Itachi was convincing her that she loved her so much and he wanted to prove it to her. She loved her daughter and would cry at times when she asked about her father. Miu was her only treasure in the world. Sume and Makoto, being the young and loving grandmothers of this child, tended to spoil her, but Sume would use Sally be more careless on where they went. Makoto was glad that Hana was nowhere near as reckless or nuts as Sume is and shown she was a very responsible adult and loving mother. Makoto didn't really care what clan traditions Miu followed, she was just glad to have a grandchild, especially since Sasuke was gonna be on missions. Grandmothers were the first to become mothers. As Makoto packed Sasuke's lunch, she muttered to herself, "I think I better make sure Miu at least waits till she's 21 to have children." After eating, Sasuke took his lunch and headed for the door. "Hey Sasuke. I wish you luck. Fight." Unbeknownst to him, Minato and the Jonin who were to be sensei to the new genin were watching him through the crystal ball. If she hadn't been around, Sasuke would have just concentrated on strengthening himself for power, but now that this little girl was carrying his clan's blood, all he could think about was finding the strength to protect what was left of his family and avenge his father by bringing Itachi back. Alive or dead, he only hoped he'd have the answer before he finds him. Miu exclaimed excitedly. "That's him, then?" Kakashi questioned Minato. "Yes. One of the pair that made it through the assault. All that's left of the Uchiha are him, his mother, and, I suppose, the young one. I'm not too worried about Makoto, and little Miu will be alright because she's still a young child. Although Sasuke appears to have good intentions, I believe that his journey into twilight was prompted by his brother's treachery." Minato replied, "I want you to do what you can for him because there's no way to know for sure what he will decide to do in the future." Kakashi responded, "Assuming him and his teammates pass my test, we'll see Lord Hokage." The Jonin continued to meet and observe the new genin as they made their way to the academy. Hinata was wearing her ninja outfit, but she couldn't decide whether to wear her usual jacket or the black one she wore the other day. Since Naruto had chosen the black one, it wouldn't hurt to try a new look to at least see if he would notice her more than was necessary. Yesterday she dismissed the thought. After waking up and yawning, Hanabi scratched her eyes and said, "Morning, big sister." Hinata grinned at her when she saw that she was drooling once more while she slept. "Hanabi, good morning." Hinata told her sister, "Hold still," as she wiped away her tears. Hanabi looked at her sister and loved her and her mother very much, but instead of severing the two households' ties after the incident with the Cloud Village, it turned into a separation. Hiyashi had become the kind of clan head that the elders expected him to be, and Saya sometimes wished he would just stop being so stubborn and go back to how he was before, but losing his brother had left a scar that wouldn't go away. It was difficult for her to stay with the man she loved if there was no longer love. She stared at the documents, which were obviously for a divorce, and was having trouble making a decision until she heard her daughters arrive, so she quickly hid them in her secret compartment of her and Hiyashi's room. "Ah, ladies, good morning," she said, grinning as usual. For Hanabi's sake, she kept quiet about it. "Good morning, mother," they both said as she hugged her two daughters. Hinata thought, "There it is again." She had a natural talent for recognizing when people would fake a smile compared to a genuine one, and she wished she could see her mother smile again instead of hiding behind these fake smiles like Naruto would do at times to hide his pain and worries from friends and family. "I'll wait a little longer," Saya told herself. No one would believe that, despite her kindness and smile, she had been going through a lot of hardship with her husband over the past few years. However, for the sake of her daughter, she was willing to try to at least save her marriage and keep it from failing, as well as hopefully prevent her clan from destroying itself due to the tensions with many of the main and side families. "You ready to begin your ninja duties, Hinata?" Yes, Mom simply observed in an attempt to lift her mother's spirits. Hinata replied, I'll be kind like you and strong like my father. Saya grinned at her. I know you'll be great, sweetie. How about me, Mom? Saya laughed and Hanabi inquired. You too, Hanabi, of course, she answered. You two will become kunoichi and lovely young ladies. At that moment, Ko emerged. Ko, who was likely one of the few members of the side families who didn't care about the clan feud, said, Pardon my intrusion, Lady Saya, but it is almost time for Lady Hinata to go to the academy. Ko had repeatedly attempted to persuade Neji to stop harboring animosity toward him and to stop being the possible catalyst for a civil war between the Hyuga clan, but to no avail. Yes, indeed, Ko. Thank you. Is there anything more? Saya questioned the devoted Hyuga. Yes, later today the elders would like you and Lord Hiyashi present for a meeting and I am to train Lady Hanabi today, Ko responded. All right, then as he bowed respectfully and walked away, she said, You better get going before you're late. I'll send Hanabi to you after breakfast. I mean, who would want to keep Naruto waiting? With full knowledge of her crush, she teased her daughter. Mom, Hinata replied as she blushed and turned red as a tomato. She bid her farewells and ran out to meet up with Naruto. Speaking of him, he had just shown up at the meeting place and waited for Hinata in the middle of the district that was 5 minutes away from the Hyuga compute and 10 minutes away from the academy. Needless to say, he was very sore from his mother's punishment workouts Hinata had just shown and saw his headband was crooked. Naruto, are you okay? As she adjusted his headband and correctly placed it on his forehead, she inquired. Yes, he answered drowsily, just my mom's punishment workouts left me sore. Are you having problems again? She inquired. Yes, Hinata blushed once more when Naruto responded, all because of yesterday, giving her the impression that someone had exposed him for the bathhouse incident. I apologize, I didn't intend to cause you any trouble. What? What are you? Oh? Naruto blushed, remembering what he had seen at the bathhouse. Hey. Forget about it. Let's pretend it never happened, shall we? As they prepared to leave for the academy, Naruto said, looking embarrassed, and Hinata agreed. Naruto. A certain blonde girl glomped him, causing Naruto to wince in agony from his aching muscles. She yelled. Ino. Why are you in this place? Trying to ignore the pain, he asked. I came to tell you that, despite what Iruka said, you are still a Hei. Why are you wearing a headband? She had heard that he had failed the exam, so she was going to try to win him over with some sympathy. Naruto mused to himself, oh, right, I forgot the only one I told about this was Hinata. Naruto gave a very condensed version of the events, saying, well, some stuff happened and I was able to use an advanced jutsu and Iruka-sensei saw it and officially allowed me to graduate. Whoa, that's fantastic. I was aware of his error. I think my love for you, Naruto, has grown even stronger, Ino declared as she held on to him. Let's head to the academy, please, we might end up on the same team. As she felt Naruto being drawn away from her, Ino told him. Hinata clung to Naruto's right arm and said, he was walking with me to the academy first. Ino. Her irritation turned to jealousy. An equally irritated Ino grabbed his left arm and said, love always makes exceptions, Hinata. Hinata and Ino glared at one another, putting Naruto in the middle of what could have been a catfight. I arrived first. Hinata shouted. I had first dibs on him. Ino responded with a shout. Is it not possible for us three to simply stroll together? In an attempt to break up the altercation before it got out of hand, Naruto asked. No. The fight went on for a while, and if Kiba hadn't arrived to help move things along, they would have been late. Naruto entered the classroom behind the girls and sighed deeply because he arrived on time. They both yelled in unison. Why are you here, Naruto? Naruto turned to see Shikamaru sitting next to Choji, telling him, only graduates are supposed to be here. Naruto pointed to his headband and said, take a look up here. You must be joking with me. How did you manage to do that? Not believing what he was seeing, Shikamaru asked, and Ino glomped him once more. Isn't he incredible, surprising us by pulling off an underdog victory like this? Leave him alone, Ino. Hinata shouted, attempting to pull Ino away from her crush, but she was holding on to his throat as a result of all the yanking. Naruto's face gradually turned blue as he uttered, can't breathe. Looks like you arrived on schedule, Ino pig. When Ino looked up, she saw Sakura Haruno, her old friend and former rival from when she was a member of the Sasuke fan club. Well, if it's not Billboard Brow, she may no longer be her romantic rival, but they are still rivals in general, and Ino's two rivals are what make her stronger. Hinata was also concerned because rumors that Naruto had a crush on the pink-haired girl spread like wildfire, making Hinata perceive her as a rival. The three of them engaged in a three-way stare down, With lightning shocks connecting from their foreheads, Naruto started the rumor in an unsuccessful attempt to outdo Sasuke, and it got worse when Ino began chasing him by using simple kunoichi seduction techniques. Sasuke billboard brow is yours to keep. Oh no. As she protruded her tongue, Ino informed her. Alright, I'll give you a skanky pig. Oh no. Sakura yelled back while inner Sakura, Cha, hey, you. I got one. The entire class was in shock, especially Hinata, Ino, and Sakura, because the first kiss was forever out of their reach. Oh god. Naruto said as he started to head down to his desk, where, unfortunately, Sasuke chose a bad time to get up to use the restroom. He missed the first step of the stairs, falling to the unwary Sasuke until he looked up and realized it was too late to avoid it. Naruto was about to scream in panic, just as he did, until smack, followed by an smooch. I recently lost my first kiss. Who do you think that is? Sasuke shouted. I would have hit the floor if you hadn't gotten up, you jerk. Because you tripped and fell, it was yours. Give me my privacy back. Sakura popped her knuckles and appeared to be a demon, while Ino and Hinata declared a temporary truce to make Sasuke pay for stealing Naruto's first kiss, which they were attempting to obtain. Naruto screamed until he felt a great desire to kill Sakura and the Sasuke fan club. Naruto, you really are dead. Sakura spoke in a menacing tone. Sasuke Hinata remarked, I never thought you would be that kind of person, believing Sasuke had done it on purpose because she was upset about the situation. It takes special service to take away my prize, you closet homo. The last 5 minutes felt like a nightmare so real that Naruto and Sasuke passed out and repressed the experience to a forgotten memory. They took their seats as Iruka arrived, and Ino yelled. Naruto and Sasuke felt like they died and went to hell. Alright, pay attention, you are all now Leaf Genin as of right now. You will have lunch together to get to know your new squad after I call out the names of each squad. Don't be late. Your Jonin senseis will arrive after lunch. Alright. First squad. Iruka began to call out the names for the squads. The first 6 squads had been called out. Naruto was getting anxious as to who his dad thought would make good teammates for him. Squad 7. Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura. Sakura exclaimed with joy. Cha, I've won twice in one day, her inner voice shouted. And Namikaze Naruto. For one thing, Naruto and Sasuke have never worked well together. They always try to compete in some way, and for some reason, he was a little afraid of Sakura, though he can't remember why. Naruto didn't seem happy about this team up, Iruka called out. Hinata thought to herself, sigh, I guess I won't get to be in the same squad as Naruto. Fuck it. How did Sakura acquire Naruto? She already has Sasuke, right? Ino grumbled to herself. The 8th team. Hyuga Hinata. Aburame Shino. Kiba Inuzuka, 2. At least Hinata knew Kiba. But Shino was usually quiet in comparison to everyone else, Iruka shouted. Team 10. Nara Shikamaru. Akamichi Choji. And Yamanaka Ino. Iruka called while Ino grumbled to herself, fully aware of who had orchestrated this. She said to herself, not liking her chances so far because she knows Shikamaru is lazy and Choji simply loves to eat. You would think our dads would try to at least be open to us being in a different team up compared to them. Ino sobbed dramatically on Naruto's shoulder before leaving for lunch, saying, Wah, I want to be with you all the time. Naruto answered, come on Ino, it's not all bad. It's gonna be lonely not getting to hang out as much, Hinata stated. Hey, our friendship is unaffected by the fact that we play on different teams. Naruto encouraged the girls by saying, who knows, if we work hard enough, maybe we'll team up sometime in the future. Hinata said, I guess you're right, alright, simply watch Naruto. I'll be that much stronger the next time you see me, Ino remarked as she walked to speak with her teammates and bid him farewell with a kiss. Hinata remarked, I guess I should go too. You'll be fantastic. I am aware that Kiba is also a decent man. Hinata grinned at Naruto's upbeat demeanor and said, so it won't be all bad. Hinata said, thanks, not wanting to let Ino down. She plucked up the courage to do something unexpected and kissed Naruto on the cheek in the hopes that perhaps this would at least help him realize how she felt about him. Hinata? Naruto stood there with his hand on his cheek, feeling happy for some reason, but he was at a loss for words as she left, embarrassed. Hi, Naruto, will you be attending? Sakura yelled. Oh, I see on the way. As he received his lunch, Naruto responded. Team 7 would take the time to get to know each other even though Sakura was hoping to eat alone with Sasuke. Naruto and Sasuke wouldn't say much to each other because the accidental kiss made it awkward. They've known each other since childhood, but they always seemed to argue before getting along. Sakura had broken the ice to see if she could at least get them to talk about themselves more. Saya was lost in her thoughts about what to do. Saya. When Saya turned around, she saw Makoto and Mew strolling around. Saya answered to her friend, "Oh, Makoto." Mew, who had a habit of giving everyone kid-like nicknames, yelled. Makoto attempted to correct her, saying, "Now Mew, you know that's not her name." "Oh, it's all right." She patted the young girl's head and said, "I don't mind. How does it feel to be a grandmother in your 30s going on 40s? Teasily, she asked. Makoto cheerfully said, "How are things with you lately? It's better to be a young grandmother than an old grandmother who can't play with her grandchild." Makoto observed the brief moment of sadness on her face before feigning a smile. "Oh, just fine." Makoto gestured to a play area where young children could play while their parents went shopping, saying, "Mew, why don't you play over there for a bit?" "Hey, Kay." After responding, she bolted off to play. Makoto told her friend, "So spill it." "What do you spill?" "Go." "Saya, since we were young students at the academy, I have known you. I can tell when you're being cunning, happy, or angry." Makoto told Saya, "There's definitely something wrong with you." Saya responded, "Sai, you always were a hard one to keep secrets from." As they sat down to watch Mew play, Makoto told her about her current family issues and began discussing what the elders had discussed with her and Hiyashi. The meeting had been about what to do with Hinata and Hanabi, two girls who showed potential as clan heads. Normally, the elders would have branded Hanabi because they felt that she wasn't capable of leading the clan, but they decided to wait until they could assess Hanabi's potential. However, Hinata had grown significantly, and Hanabi was proving to be skilled as well for her age. Hiyashi didn't say much, just that he would think about it and provide an answer later. Saya was heartbroken that her husband could even entertain the idea. "I understand. I was unaware of how detrimental it was to you. Are you really thinking of leaving Hiyashi?" "Saya, I am aware that he has been quite severe ever since the cloud incident, and that he was hurt by Hizashi's passing. Why don't you try to speak with him?" Makoto told her, "After all this time, I would hate to see you end your marriage. I am aware this is why it's challenging. Hiyashi has been so different that it gets lonely these days. Even though I adore my girls, he doesn't go to bed at all on some nights," Saya said. Makoto told her friend, "Saya, I won't tell you what to do, but really think this through." "Yes, I will. I appreciate you listening. No issue. I apologize if the caged bird seal has caused you any additional stress. When someone is attempting to coerce you into branding them, it can't be easy. I understand that it's customary, but the thought of what they must endure hurts too much. I'll do whatever it takes to keep them safe if it comes down to it," Saya informed Makoto. With or without Hiyashi, lunch had ended at the academy, and Team 7 was the only group still waiting for their sensei to arrive. "Where on earth is he?" Naruto inquired, growing irritated. Sakura retorted, "I'm sure he's on his way. How come our sensei is so late?" Inner Sakura grumbled. "It's quite irritating." Sasuke informed them. "I have better things to do than wait around." Naruto said to his team, "Maybe I should prank him because he's late." Sasuke told him, "Don't even think about it." At that moment, the door opened, and Kakashi came in to look at this team. "Well, all right," he said, "you guys must be Team 7. Hey, you are someone I know. You were my dad's student once." Naruto, who had only ever seen images of Kakashi and had never met him in person, said, pointing at him. "I am that." As they followed him outside to a rooftop, Kakashi said, "Now, why don't we go somewhere more open?" The three sat down on the steps while Kakashi stood by the rails. "All right, then let's begin by introducing ourselves." "Prefaces?" the trio inquired. Sensei, I thought all the Jonin sensei were already informed of the genin they would be receiving," Sakura replied. "That's true, but it only includes the most basic information, like your names and the skills you possess. This is merely to get to know one another better. Tell me about your names, aspirations, preferences, and the reasons behind your ninja career. Stuff like that," Kakashi clarified. "I guess I'll go first to break the ice. Kakashi Hitaki is my name. My preferences aren't very significant. Well, I don't have any hobbies." As they gave him irritated looks, Kakashi said, "My goals and dreams, well, that's really none of your business." That was what kind of introduction? They all pondered. "Let me go first. My name is Naruto Namikaze," shouted Naruto. "I adore my family, and I enjoy ramen a lot, and my goal is to become Hokage, surpassing my father. In this manner, I can convince everyone that I am valuable and that my mother is not a monster." Surprising his teammates, Naruto said, "It seems that he wasn't the only one trying to outdo someone with extraordinary talent." Sasuke had observed how people treated him and his mother and could understand wanting to do that for his mother while achieving his goals of surpassing his father. He's not quite his father, but he shares his mother's tenacity and passion as he made notes about his students' personalities. Kakashi thought, it will be interesting to see how he develops. Sakura then took her turn. You can call me Sakura Haruno. Sakura looked at Sasuke and blushed once more. My dream, oh. My likes are all. Sigh. Just as I had imagined, Kakashi thought. Girls her age are more interested in boys who are training as ninjas. And Naruto is what I detest. The glare caused Naruto to turn white, indicating that she has forgiven him for taking Sasuke's first kiss. Kakashi saw the glare and thought, talk about harsh. Sasuke then took his turn. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. My family is what I like. I want to dislike as the wind blew. Sasuke remarked icily, I am going to find a certain someone and make him pay for what he has done. There's no doubt that this one has something to prove. His eyes are like those of an Avenger overall. This team is very similar to mine. I can see why Sensei chose this setup. Kakashi thought as he looked at 3 and was reminded of his young days with his team. He snapped back to the present and noticed that the other teams had similarities to the other Jonin Sensei's old teams like Kurenai's and Asuma's. Alright then, that's finished now. I want everyone to get enough sleep for tomorrow. Why? Naruto inquired. I'll be giving you all a test tomorrow to see if you all possess the skills necessary to be shinobi. Arrive at training ground 13 without breakfast at around 7:30. There's no point in throwing up tomorrow, Kakashi retorted. Hold on a minute. Which test? Naruto inquired. Sakura said, yeah, I thought we already graduated. The purpose of the graduation exam was to assess your mastery of the fundamentals tomorrow. I'll go into further detail. As he pulled the old ninja vanish with a poof, Kakashi said, for now, call it a day and be ready. After the smoke cleared, he vanished. As Naruto put it, I guess that's it, Sakura continued, guess we'll see each other tomorrow. Don't you know anything about this guy, Naruto? Sasuke questioned him. Not at all. I recently came across images of him, Naruto answered. I've heard he's really strong. When Sasuke told him, you really are a loser. What did you say? Naruto yelled at the comment. You're having trouble with it. Sakura stood between them to signal them to stop, and Sasuke shouted back. Come on, guys, finish it, Sakura shouted, and after they had calmed down, the 3 of them left. They each had a task they felt they needed to do to get ready for tomorrow, so he decided to investigate Kakashi Hitaki. Sasuke had a suspicion that this test would involve fighting, so he went to the ninja tool shop to get some supplies. Sakura reasoned that if the boys were going to argue, she would need something to break them off, and only one person knew them both well enough to get them focused. She was going to ask Hinata for assistance. Kushina was preparing dinner in the Namikake's home, and Minato had returned home early, which was unusual. Sigh. It's tragic. My children will no longer be at home, and before we know it, they will be dating and expressing a desire to move out. After that, they will tie the knot. Kushina began to lose his temper. Calm down, honey. Minato put his arms around her waist and said, they're both still a bit young for that, and I think they're a little too focused on their ninja careers. Besides, this means we get more time to ourselves. Minato was seducing his wife in the kitchen. Time for ourselves? What if I am given a mission, though? As she felt him touch her body as if they were 18 again, she asked. I am Kushina. The Hokage. Kushina laughed at Minato's antics as he kissed her, saying, I think giving you a day of preparing for a mission would be enough time. Hokage, Lord, are you on a mission for me? Kushina started stroking his crotch with her left hand, asking, now? With a seductive tone, she said. This is a S-rank mission. Kushina Namikaze. To please your Hokage is your mission, Minato answered and engaged in her game. Kushina told him, oh, Lord Hokage, please take me and make me yours. They made out while Minato slowly undressed. They were so engrossed in their game that they didn't notice Naruto had returned home and was watching his parents fight. Ah, Naruto. Naruto hurriedly responded, I was gonna say I got dad's old student Kakashi as my sensei, but I think I came at a bad time. He then left to go eat out, embarrassing his parents until Kushina turned to face her husband. You decided to make Kakashi his sensei? Kushina is staring at him as if he did something incorrectly. As he introduced her to Naruto's team, Minato answered, well, yeah. This sounds a lot like your old squad, but I have a problem because it's Kakashi, Minato. I've looked at his record, and he has never passed any of the squads you've given him. I am aware that you have been purposefully giving Naruto nearly insurmountable odds to pass. Minato, why? Even in comparison to Tayuya, Kushina's frustration with her husband's secrets and the reason he was putting their boy through this kind of testing was overwhelming, and Minato knew she had him in a difficult situation. Kushina the masked man is out there somewhere, you know that. The child of prophecy had been mentioned by Jiraiya before. Two things became clear to me on the day we learned of his disappearance. That man will certainly bring the great catastrophe the prophecy mentioned, and that Naruto will be the one to face him. As Minato went into more detail supporting his reasoning. After he was finished, needless to say, Kushina was upset with Minato. She locked herself in their bedroom. She was upset and angry that Minato was intentionally trying to prepare their son for some confrontation with the man that nearly killed her baby and tried to attack the village. Because of him, Naruto was forced to carry her burden while she was only left to carry half of the Nine Tails chakra. Minato was now laying on the couch wondering if he was even doing the right thing anymore. Despite the peaceful times the village had, it was obvious that their problems. How these problems get resolved is what will get seen as time goes by. Naruto returned home and noticed his father on the couch, meaning he got in trouble. Naruto went to bed early to prepare for tomorrow. It is now 11 p.m. Minato slept on the couch. Kushina quietly came out of her room and quietly made her way to Naruto's room. She looked at her little baby sleeping peacefully in his bed. She gently stroked his cheek as she sat in a chair to watch him for a bit. She spent almost the whole night watching her baby till she went back to her room to sleep. The Namakazes, the Uchihas, and even the Hyugas, these three families have their own strifes, issues, and problems that won't be going away anytime soon.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.